Nothing's running, that's why nothing's
What
there.
have you got on the air right now? Sounds like somebody doing...
Is there anything coming through your headphones?
I have nothing.
There's nothing through here.
Up your life, Spice FM, 98.8 FM.
Should it be? There's only one.
Yes, there is now.
Into an experience. Book your own gift set for a range of our exclusive
Nope.
gifts from
Nope.
$5.99 and choose from a personalised photo gift box or hamper
I had trouble with
basket.
these ones on Sunday. We
Official
ended up swapping
stockings
for
of
that.
Creed, Tom Ford, Bonds number 9, Serge Lutens, Abercrombie
Did
and
we
Finch,
not
and much more, with free gifts with all fragrances.
Not
Make
one.
your scent personal at House of Scents.
Just bring your hand here and plug it here.
Look at that.
www.houseofscents.co.uk
We just
or
sort of
visit
keep
our
pulling
Have you lost weight, Doc? Have you lost weight? You look a bit sort of slimmer in the face.
Oh,
like the
I'm shaving.
Oh, maybe.
You just,
So I'm much into a juice diet, you know.
Oh, right.
Every morning. Are you giving it to me?
We're trying to...
trying
Okay.
to entangle them.
We buy cars from more.com, do
Just,
We buy cars from more.com, that is what we do. You can come to us, or we will come to you. We buy cars from more.com, that is
okay, we'll be on in a moment. So.
Instant valuation and payment. Go online at WeBuyCarsForMore.com or visit our valuation drive-through at the Newcastle.
Maybe try putting that in there.
Transfer your money there and then, and even arrange a free lift home. Ask about our price
You?
promise.
No.
Make sure it's connected to the chair.
Hold on, hold on.
Yeah.
You see, some of them work one side, and the very kind commentators and people come here, just change what suits them. Then people like us who have more than one person.
See, I get not on here, and here I get sound, but that's...
Yeah, it's enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
just
yeah.
be careful
Spice that.
because Doc's got it connected up to the chair. If he doesn't like what you're saying, he'll...
So how many people have been dying from that mad flu?
No, it's never a proper death. Because you're trying to recover and then you die again and again.
Yeah, a friend of mine told me he might die in about 80 years, but he's like feeling more than death, more than
No, I haven't got the flu. It's just the catarrh. I mean, I can get over the cold in a couple of days or so, but it's the catarrh I can't get rid of.
Yeah, man.
Which reminds me, I have to get some tissue.
This is a very, very special limited offer and subject to availability. Call now on 0191 30633 or log on at
can't play any of this. Actually, he could play track number 4, Signature. I think.
Very good afternoon. It's the Outside the Box show, and we have, of course, Risaria. Hi, Risaria.
Hi, Doc.
Hi. Just put your mic up a bit. Yes. And we have Glen.
Hello again,
Hi, all the way from Billingham.
And fully recovered, I hope.
Well, apart from the catarrh, you know, ding ding ding.
I thought you were from Billingham, not from Qatar. And where's the man with the guitar?
The mystery guest.
Oh, the mystery guest, we seek you, but we know you're not listening. Because your phone
our
did not be charged.
Our irregular regular.
Yes, that's a good one. And who have we here in the middle here?
Oh,
Introduce yourself, sir.
but we have the mystery guest. I'm from Longbenton, and I sometimes talk politics and sometimes talk music.
And sometimes you shoot films.
Yeah.
You're a cameraman too.
No, I'm just.
And you're
just
making a
photographer.
flyer and you just drop them in.
Yeah, and I have.
And you seem to have a CD in your hand.
I have a CD that you can't play because it's protest stuff. I'm not sure.
No, I don't mind playing anything. I mean,
I
don't join
And
protest.
your, and your
number
name,
4, Signature.
the name of our mystery guest.
Meatek.
Meatek.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't remember your name, so I saw those animals that go up on the hind
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Meerkats.
Meerkat,
So I thought meerkat,
I'm going to
Meatek.
be stuck
And
with
I
that
got
for
it
the
right.
rest of my life.
But it's an unusual name. Is it Polish?
Meatek is Polish.
Uh-huh.
Meerkat is just
Meerkat can be anywhere in the world.
merely an invention of the media.
Merely an invention.
Yeah, yeah. That's track number 4, because the other stuff, yeah.
Is it too wide, the rest
Well,
of it?
it's, I don't know. I mean, it's I happen to like it.
Let it run. Who cares?
Number 4 is signature. It's inspired by the author's encounter at a job center where the officious little lady in front of him said, "Your signature's too big."
Your ego is too small.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it about signatures? Did you all also have lots of signatures when you were teenagers? Like copying your parents
Yes.
and making fancy ones? And did you?
Yeah.
No, it just evolved over the years, really.
In time, I just write Anand as simply as I can, and that's very hard to
Yeah.
copy. If you do one of those swish ones, it's perhaps
You mean
easier.
like this?
Let me sign for you. God, that looks like
What?
Walt Disney signing.
I think mine came from when I was at boarding school. We used to have to do copperplate.
Mhm.
You see,
Very exact.
I used to
between
write
the
like
lines.
this with that round fat A, and now I
Yeah.
do this.
Mm.
And it's easy to read and hard to copy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
mine's too easy to copy.
Okay, so let's have a listen to what you've proffered.
Back in the box.
Or get back in the box to people who are trying to get a job.
Yeah.
Sad.
No, it's hardly appropriate for here because we're out of the box.
We're outside.
I know, exactly.
We're outside the box. Okay, then let the music run.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I find protest very difficult at my stage of life. I think it's just getting rid of your spleen, and so I don't bother going anymore. What do you think?
Well, protest is kind of useful, but if you're going to do more than protest, protesting is part 1 of getting a message out to people,
Okay.
letting everybody else know that you're really
That you exist
strong.
and-
Yeah,
and
we're
you
not there,
disagree with something.
We're walking down Northumberland Street or Grey Street,
Uh-huh.
and we're letting you know that we're angry about something, or that there's an issue that's really important that has to get out there that the regular media is not talking about.
Uh-huh.
Once you've engaged people in that and yourself, you then go to meetings and you actually do things and you lobby individuals who can do something about it, whether it's companies or government or the media itself, to get them to change the way they do things
So it's about changing people's opinions,
and educating them.
educating them. Okay. Would you not say it's almost kind of brainwashing then?
No.
Why not?
Because then you would say that teaching someone the alphabet's a brainwashing.
No. You show them the alphabets, then they do what they like with it. I asked this only because when I was at Leeds with Ali,
Uh-huh.
one lady was talking about conversion, religious conversion. So another woman got up and said, "What's the difference between letting people join the Labour or the Conservative Party?" That's exactly the same thing, isn't it?
Well, it's a change of mind. It's
Mindset.
mindset. You move from one set of beliefs to another, or a more comfortable set of beliefs.
So it's about comfort zone and not over learning.
No. I like to think that
Risaria,
if
what do you make of it? I'm almost doing the devil's advocate on your behalf because you're always about positivity.
Well,
And
it's,
protest is about exactly the opposite.
yeah. Yesterday I was reading an Abraham Hicks quote, which was saying, when you're in the vibration of complaining, when you complain,
Keep talking.
no matter what, it really it doesn't
Lowers the
feel-
tone.
It lowers, it
By
lowers your
vibration.
tone.
Yes,
it lowers
yes.
your vibration.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what or who you're protesting about.
Yes.
And if you learn to go into appreciation,
Uh-huh.
either by the path of least resistance,
Yes.
and it's like I was showing people before I came on the show. We came on air. I got a card at Damsels in Success on Monday.
Damsels in success out of damsels not in distress.
in
Yeah.
a different place.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we sing, dance, and eat
Yes.
cake, and it's like my housemate said, "What's there not to like?"
So what does your card read then?
And it's love where you are planted.
Love where you are planted. So God or whoever the guy is or lady is who sent you somewhere, wherever you are, enjoy.
Yes, and Glen's response.
My response was, that's okay, so long as you're not planted in shit,
And your response is?
in a shithole.
It helps you grow faster.
Yeah.
Because
Better and
shit is
bigger.
manure.
And I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
You are grow.
Because you're meant to be where you are. You've got to accept it and make the
So
best
this
of
is
it.
exactly the opposite of what Meatek is talking about. Because he's talking about protesting and we are saying enjoy.
I'm not saying you shouldn't move out of the shithole, you know.
No.
It's you've got to appreciate where you are and why you're there. If you don't appreciate why you're there, then you'll never move out of it.
Is there a way of protesting through music and so on, which I followed a lot when South Africa was under apartheid? You know, they made a lot of music. Yes. What do you think? Because you brought some music to us.
Well, what music does is the same thing that humor does, which is that, and by the way, you know, protest isn't what the protest that you sort of, even going back to like when London was burning because of these people that were, you know, tearing down, you know, businesses. And what happens in the Northeast, it's positive protest. It's people going out. No, we love immigrants. We love the poor. We love the mentally ill. We love everybody.
We love people.
We love people, and we don't want you to be nasty to us and to everybody else. We're saying to you, don't speak in our name.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying, and we're putting out positive messages, and we're saying, if you like this sort of thing, if you want to be with us, we have these other activities that we can do that are far more sedentary, but equally important and equally powerful that we can do. And we put on things. We put on meetings. We put on shows. I'm putting on a show in January with two musicians, some poets, and possibly another 2 acts. I'm not quite sure which. And it's going to be sort of like a history of musical protest from the 60s, 70s in Newcastle to what it's like now. Has anything moved? Has anything changed? And what are the issues that the singers and the poets singing and speaking about now? And of course, when you come down for this, you can have a good time anyways, and the money goes to a good cause.
What you're saying is perfectly true, but do you not think people are getting on in age and still keep protesting, and they die protesting? I see some people who are always at Gray's Monument, rather. Always, I mean, whether it's about animal rights or human rights or animal. Do you not think people become
who are
professional protesters?
Oh, absolutely, they're professional. And you know what? I'm happy to have them there at these things. And I've talked to some of the professional protesters. I
meant that as a joke, actually.
Oh, but I'm quite serious. One of these guys shows up with a stack of newspapers. And basically his job is to start as many arguments as possible and sell his little newspapers. And I said, well, you've come down to this refugee thing, because he had at that particular point, and you're trying to talk about an issue which is not part of the thing that's on the table today. Today we're talking about getting food and clothing for refugees. So where's your little bag of food and clothing? Where's your £5?
For the food and clothing.
Yeah, I know you've got it. And then he goes to me, so I don't see what your point is. And I said, well, thank you very much. You've made my point for me.
So is part of the protest about arguments?
Oh, protest alone is never good. Protest has to be part of change. Protest is merely shouting out loud, this is a problem.
Like a signboard.
And then you say, these are the solutions, and let's do something about it. If you're always stuck in protest, then you get nothing done. If you're always stuck in meetings, you get nothing done. If you're sitting in council and you don't listen to these other parts, you also get nothing done. So
because you're unconnected with.
Exactly. So all of these three things have to talk together.
Do you not think that some of these so-called professional protesters are really wanting attention? Just for themselves.
Well, they all are.
Not yes, I know, but not for the cause. For them.
Or for themselves.
For themselves,
Sure.
They want to be important because they feel small within. Therefore, they've got to protest and make a fuss so that they feel or seem to get noticed and feel more important than they actually are inside.
What do you think of that?
I completely agree. I knew there's a particular type of individual that you see at things, regardless of whether it's music venues or politics or local activism that's not specifically political. There's always 5 or 6 people who are always there front and center, and they're in every photograph. And you can
that says it all.
But you can actually tell how bad some of them are. There's one guy, this wonderful Armenian chap with a beautiful flowing mustache. I love photographing him.
Yes.
I'd have 2 MPs a sitting councillor and whoever was in charge of a particular issue that we were sort of talking about that day, the camera would come up and suddenly this guy from out of nowhere,
just in front of the camera.
right in with everybody. I was like, how the hell did he do that?
Yeah.
Don't you think the camera changes people? Lady died because she was photographed so much as a young kid that the only bliss she got in life with that awful parental divorce and all that was being cute in front of the camera. I've seen lots of pictures of her looking sad, but nobody wants that. Everybody wants that cutie, beauty, pretty, princessy kind of school teachery kind of. What else can I say? I mean, I like her to some extent, but it is
the camera. The camera's
it's
a
all
mirror.
about the camera.
The camera's a mirror. Don't you think?
Yes.
Is it, or is it
Well,
just captures those bits you want?
It's certainly a tool.
Mm.
I think if you want to get yourself into a particular place and whatnot, you use the tool that's most necessary.
Yeah, but if I
for
took
it.
out my camera right now and you have
Yeah.
a particular self-image of yourself, you go, oh, I'm not ready. I don't like
Yeah,
the clothes
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
wearing. I want to be smiling. Oh, I didn't shave.
Yeah,
No.
but that's because you want to.
Risaria?
And that's one, we were talking about this at Damsels because one of the women who actually helps promote people and improve get them improve their image, she is very, very, finds it very challenging to video herself. She's okay with a photo because she can set that up.
Now,
Yeah.
I just realized the day before when I was working with Lalit Sood filming a Nigerian Christian wedding. Okay. Now, the video captures motion and sound, but it doesn't focus on any one spot.
Yeah.
Whereas Lalit Sood will take pictures at that speed and choose the picture where the fellow is not picking his nose,
Yeah.
where his smile doesn't look like a snarl,
Yeah.
where she hasn't got one eye closed and looking as if she's making a pass at her father-in-law. You know, the camera has to, but you can pick and choose. A video can't,
Yes.
unless there are whole bits that are bad. So there's a big difference between the two techniques, don't you?
And that's why editing is such a skill.
Yeah.
But editing is the story, isn't it? I mean, I find editing is so exciting because you can turn the same thing into, you can take slices from here, put it elsewhere. We were doing this Aman thing yesterday, and there was this guy who spoke very well, but at that time my camera was pointing to the audience. So I took bits of him, but the lip sync didn't work. But we made such a short piece. So there's a lot of lying or cheating. What do you think? Would you call it lying or creativity?
It's creativity.
Well, it's always
Yeah.
coloured by the
You know,
personality of the editor.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. What does he or she want to say?
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think same with photographers. You can take a million pictures, but you choose the ones that you think are.
See, Saturday I was doing a gig. It was a fundraiser for Trussell Trust in Gateshead at the Central Bar, up on the 5th floor, and there was 5 or 6 acts. One of them was a punk rock band, and they're really fantastic. The problem with photographing a punk rock band is they move around a lot, and they do things that are really wonderful, and they do things with their faces and their hands and their instruments. And as a photographer, what you do is you go in there and you go.
Yeah.
And of course, there's also composition. I mean, there is a certain amount of
Yeah,
artistry, you know.
Even at that high speed.
And then you go down and you look at the 180 photos you took of these guys in 10 minutes or 20 minutes set, and you go for the shot where the lead singer is bent over arched like this. He's got the microphone and his hand is going like this. Another one of his bandmates is completely blurred, and you can feel the music. Or I can go for the boring shot where everybody's still
and smiling, like a portrait, old-fashioned.
and you can't tell what's going on. You can't see the passion in these musicians.
Well, it was the same when I was doing my when I was the student doing my illustrative course at university, and of course the tutors were always saying, "You've got to exaggerate this, exaggerate that,
and caricaturize everything,
and distort this." And you see, that went against the grain with me.
And you being a woodworker, it would go against the grain.
That's true as well. Yeah. But sometimes you've got to go against the grain, just maybe for an effect. But where it's in order to get noticed and get published, you've got to go to extremes. It's the same in television, radio, wherever. In order to get noticed, to put your head above the parapet of everybody else's work, you've got to, and it goes with the same with the soaps on television. Before, they were reasonably just okay as life really was. But now they've got to have murders and rapes and all sorts of
without just the ordinary boring stuff of going to the pub, having a pint and coming home. See, the other thing, Risaria, I feel about videos, since you've done a lot of video editing, People.
Can you hear? Can you hear the music?
Well, I can see the action.
I get people to do a lot of video editing for me.
Yes. No, but I think there's a big difference, The first step is photography. People used to be shy of their pictures taken. Now I think they got used to the idea because they can't help it. It's all on Facebook and everywhere. But when you do video, your voice comes out, and most British people are very scared of public speaking.
Yes.
And then they don't want the story to come out. I talk to so many of these so-called politicians, councillors. Soon as I switch on the camera, their tone changes.
Yeah.
Why are you so dishonest? So the video really gets to the heart of the matter, and most people are scared of it. So even great politicians, I'm not talking about the smallest, I'm talking about the most, I'll name her. This is Baroness Warsi. You can't go higher than her in guts. I mean, she's just a cabinet maker's daughter. She's Muslim, she's female, she dresses ordinary, she doesn't put on burqa and everything, but
I admire her for Tory.
Having said that, she won't let me video her. So we had this conference, and she never said, she said, I would rather you didn't take. Even when she was here through Amar Mirza in Newcastle, she said, would you like to switch off your camera? I said, I wouldn't like to, but if you say I would, that's how I make friends with people, by being teasy. And then I said, why? I switched off. She said, because I swear. I said, well, if you swear, then be prepared to swear in public. And if you don't, then be prepared not to swear in public. So someone as gutsy as her, and I'm using her as a prime example of someone who's a real, not tyrant, but a tyrannosaurus, She's not scared of nobody. She resigned from the cabinet. I have lots of huge respect for this female Muslim lady who has the guts to be in the Conservative Party and then kick herself out of it. I mean, it says something about her.
Yes.
And yet she's scared to be videoed. When I went to the speakers conference from the one that you still are with, Tyneside Speakers Club, there were 8 speakers and they had never put anything on YouTube. This was the 9th year or something. And I said, can I film you? They said, why? I said, because you're a public speaker. I only had my iPhone 5 then. And the Scots fellow, I remember very clearly, he said, but I'm ugly. I said, that's okay, it's your speech I'm after. People try all these tricks to make you laugh, so you say, oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay. If you're prepared to speak in public, and there were 250 people listening, and these are the country's 8 best speakers from speakers clubs of Great Britain, where English was born like. You know what I mean?
Well,
and yet they're scared of speaking and coming out in public. Why?
And yet people engage, especially on Facebook, when you're authentic, because I'd had lots of videos I'd been doing with you, with my filmmaker friends, but I wasn't natural. I was doing my hair and my makeup and things, and then I did one that was just me, and that's the one that people engaged with, because I've become more relaxed in front of the camera over this year. Having you video everything we do here, I guess, it just gets you to relax in front of it, and then people engage when you're being yourself.
I went on the 13th of Friday 13th, Narendra Modi, to see him. I didn't take my big camera in case I didn't get the press pass. Because we don't have the press pass in the audience in Wembley. You're not even allowed a selfie stick, never mind a massive camera.
Right.
So it's all written down. So I did. So I was a bit sad, and I didn't sleep all night because I was all excited. I just took my iPhone 5 and interviewed people in the bus. Yeah. It's a bit odd, always projecting yourself. I'm the great broadcaster, Jonathan Ross or whoever it is, and I'm going to film you.
Yeah.
It's a bit oppressive and sometimes abusive even. So that happened. I saw Narendra Modi and everything, that was fine. Next morning, I was going to see Mrs. Ghura and film in the Gurdwara. And I had it on my car, and I said, I'm now going to the Gurdwara to see Mrs. Ghura, and what's this about Narendra Modi? 90% of that, whatever doubts I had, it's all cleared since I've seen him. And what is this talk about killing and Godhra and all that? Killings have been happening in India for 1,000 years. Nobody says a boo. But just because this guy is a Hindu, speaks in Hindi, doesn't drink, doesn't screw, and is not an adulterer, and is a respectful guy, people hate him because we want sexy guys who are very westernized. And that video was shared by 11,500 people. Last night I got a phone call from someone, Swami Ramdev, who's doing yoga in India, a really big guy. His first promoter phoned me yesterday from India and said, Anand, I saw your video and I'm glad your personality has moved on. It's amazing how Facebook can connect you if you are, I believe, true to yourself. Whether people like it or not is no concern of mine. I am me. Love me or hate me. I've been planted where I have been, and I love where I've been planted, Newcastle upon Tyne. Because really, why do people complain, for instance, of racism? I'm brown, quite obviously. I'm in your face a lot. I speak Hindi and English. I wear Indian clothes mostly. in public to show off. Nobody kills me, nobody calls me a packy, and someone did, I'll answer that. You know, this victim mentality in the protest, that is the aspect I just do not like.
Yeah.
I'm not a victim. Even when I went to Palestine, there were lots of people I interviewed. And what horrified me was there's a lady whose son was killed 2 days ago, and she wasn't even crying. And that is so horrific that a human has been so desensitized to violence. And yet we found a kid who I was playing with, like a 1-year-old baby. I mean, he had been tear gassed 6 months ago. But we danced and laughed. So I'm saying you can turn any negative thing into a happiness to leave back some joy.
Obviously, the problem in this country is that, and this actually comes up to two things that you said. One, let's talk about sensitivity, okay? Certain members of parliament, during the run-up to the vote on the Syria question, were lobbied. Now, what is lobbying? Lobbying is 2 or 3 people, 4 people, 5 people maybe, coming to your office and saying,
please, can you
sir,
say this?
ma'am, you know, I agree on this position. I would like you to at least look at what I'm having to say. We represent certain parts of your constituency, and we would like you to please consider this before you vote. Well, they're so comfortable in their little bubble and their absolute power.
Who, the MP?
The MP, that they felt that this was bullying. Now, I know there's a lot of other things that were said to have gone on, but in fact, they didn't. They were lies. They were just made up by a certain group of people to make it sound bad. The actual lobbying is it's 4 of us going to a member of parliament saying, I think you should stop kicking puppies. You know? And so now contrast that MP who's going, oh, but you've talked to us. How dare you interrupt me in my surgery?
I'm so pure, you contaminated me, kind of.
You know, and then you have this woman that you're talking about. A small child in Syria 2 weeks ago who had a mother and the father is now an orphan because their house got bombed in a raid from the air by British aeroplanes. Does that child care whether that MP was bullied? Does that child even understand the term bullying? And because we sit here, we somehow disconnect ourselves from these actual real feelings and real
it's only when I went to Palestine, you can sense it and feel it, the fear in everyone. You can feel it. It's palpable. How people live in complete fear. There are all sorts of things happening. I don't need to go into details on this show. But people do live in fear, like in a Stalinistic state. It's the same fear. I mean, democracy, you can't have total democracy. Well, I'll drive on the right side of the road, you drive on the left side of the road, and we'll crash.
It's called anarchy.
Yes. So the extreme form of democracy is anarchy, isn't it? Ultimately. So within the least amount of control and the maximum freedom.
But there's the other thing that you mentioned, which is really interesting, is that you talked about Modi, and you were just sort of banging on about what you think of him. But what you described Bernie Sanders, you described Jeremy Corbyn, you described a number of human beings through history who are what you would call the incorruptible man. And no one likes an incorruptible man.
Because they put a mirror to your face.
Yeah.
People like Modi or people like Churchill. I mean, Churchill is not perfect, but I'm saying when you're so strong, you're hiding some weakness. But the difference with this character is 4 years nobody knows where he went. Now, whether he went to Stalingrad for training or whether he went on Mount Everest for meditating, I don't know. But 4 years of his life is still absent. So there is something about this guy that, I mean, I was there. I was about 200-300 yards from the guy myself, and I heard him. And I'm not talking about him in particular, but you know, public speaking. If you need notes, don't bother. If you need to be reading notes, I'm not impressed at all, because I know somebody else has written it anyway. You're the clever dick who writes clever notes, I'm the Prime Minister, and, sorry. You know, that's not the kind of speech I want. I want somebody who speaks from the heart, who's knowledgeable. And even if we don't know where we are going, I want a leader who's saying, I'll take you there. Even if neither of us know where we are going. You know, it's like a father figure, and it is a bit like that.
There is a difference between leaders, because there are only a few people who are leaders. The majority of them are drivers. They work from behind, they drive other people to do what they want.
Like go to
and
war.
The leader provides an example that you can have respect for.
Alright, so one is by example, like a good parent really. If I swear all the time and tell my children, don't you bloody swear, I mean, that's a little bit... And kids, it doesn't work. Because kids say these kind of things, you know.
And like, don't hit your brother or I'll smack your face.
I mean, it's Hanukkah right now, and there's a wonderful little meme on Facebook that came up, and it's
Hanukkah, for most of my listeners who wouldn't know, because I've got very simple people, is a Jewish traditional festivity.
Yeah, it's
Tell us
the festival of lights.
Okay, like Diwali and Guy Fawkes.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but there's a menorah, and you light the candles.
Now again, menorah is that stand with how many lamps?
8.
8 lamps. So it's that candle stand which is in 2-dimensional. You've got lots of petals,
branches.
Branches.
Plus the 9th one, which is the one I'm getting to. It's the lighter. It's called the shamash.
Shamash.
And the meme says, "Be the shamash." Be the one who lights.
Who lights the other candles.
Be the one who starts things.
Wow.
Right.
Take courage in your hands and do it.
Yeah.
And does Hanukkah last 8 days?
Yes.
Ah,
well,
right.
That's why it's 8 crazy nights. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On
With
the
bad
8th
gifts.
day of Hanukkah.
Shula gave to me 2 plates of
No, but there are a lot of. Because I
glasses.
knew Dr. Koplowitz extremely well, who was my senior partner. He was the head of the Jewish Board of Deputies. So a lot of exchanges happened between him and I. And there's the one about people being given soup, but extremely long spoons. So they feed the other side.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't feed yourself with a long spoon. So all those little parables, and I think they're very important, isn't it? That's what we live by, don't you?
Yeah,
it's all about this. It's all about this.
It's funny you should
Love where you
mention.
planted.
It's not really in connection with that, but what was it? It's about giving up smoking. And some people used to have an extremely long cigarette holder.
Yes.
Yes.
And light up like that. If you want to get that far away from it, why don't you give
Just
it up?
stop. Yeah, when there was a cartoon, a young boy was smoking like that, and he said, "My father told me to stay away from cigarettes." So but there's some truth in that.
Yes, there is.
So
there's something in
what do you think of this fashion of having this electronic cigarette? I worked in drug addiction for a long time. Do you think it helps, or do you think it just prolongs the agony?
Both. But you know what? As someone who lives with people who smoke, I'd rather that they vape, so nothing goes into me.
Yeah.
So you know what?
Do they smoke in the house?
Yeah, they smoke in the house.
Ah, right.
Yeah. See, the difference between drinking alcohol and smoking is that alcohol gets
Well, you drink and I don't get drunk.
Yeah, I drink.
I don't get drunk.
That's right. And
I
also,
just get irritated that I don't have the alcohol.
And if I get abusive, then you can leave the room or I can leave the room, but I've not actually physically harmed you. Whereas if you're smoking, it's going into my lungs. I haven't asked you for this, and you're still giving me the gift of cancer.
Yes.
And so I'd rather they vape.
Yeah. My son has always been trying to give up smoking. He's got an asthmatic condition, and he still smokes. It's like these people go outside the hospital and then they go back in and have more treatment. But he has started to vape, and he says it's really helped him because he's stopped cigarettes altogether. So I'm all in favour of it, but it all depends on the person, their attitude inside. That's what
because
really
smoking is not just a nicotine; it's a mouth habit.
Yeah.
It's like sucking your thumb.
Yeah.
It's like picking your nose.
Yeah.
It's like comfort playing with your button or other bits of your body.
I mean, you've bought a lighter and all the accoutrements, and it's a habit. You like the feel of it and striking it, and and especially if you're in company or having a drink, then
it's a prop.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I've seen speakers.
It's a conversational prop also.
Yeah, they do.
Do you have a light?
You have your specs, and then you ask the guy a question. He's like,
No, I can't do that with my contact lens. I can't go.
You'll notice guys with beards will start stroking their beard as they're thinking. It's like you got to do something.
These are
with your
props,
hands.
isn't it?
Yeah. It's what
Like
you think.
Prince Charles used to put his hand inside his coat pocket or something. He used to go like that, didn't he?
In shiatsu, you used to call this the Prince Charles point in the middle of the because he walks holding this, and the actual point is heart protector, and it helps to balance your energy, especially when you're going into difficult situations.
But Charles has the bit. Why do you
remember that?
heart protector?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you just hold
It's
it
interesting.
there.
It's interesting
And it
because
works on the immune system as well. So,
Like this,
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
you know, for all their faults, the royal family has encouraged complementary therapies.
Mm.
That is.
So he must know that it is that.
Yeah.
He must have been told.
Yeah.
He's not doing it
No, no.
automatically.
No,
I guess.
he's doing it consciously.
Consciously.
Consciously, yes. Yeah.
But
So
also
and
when
it's
you
quite
walk like that.
unobtrusive when you walk. He's walking with his hands behind him like that.
But isn't that like a pupil walking behind the professor? Very respectful and a few feet behind, and yes, sir,
Which
3
is
by
the
4.
role he's had to have in life.
I've noticed though that
Right.
some people with military training are like that.
Yes.
They have, because
Yes,
when they're
but
standing at
military
ease,
training makes
when
you
they're
very
standing at
hierarchical.
ease, your hands are sometimes behind your back or whatever it happens to be. And I've noticed that with
In front of me, my brother-in-law, who was in the Indian Air Force as a wing commander, used to fly helicopters, the cute ones.
Fry helicopters.
Fry. Some of them fried because they were not serviced well. So fly helicopters, and he went to meet the Vice Air Marshal. This is right in front of me, and my sister, his wife, was teaching in the Air Force school and knew all the Air Force children and all. So she had a different link. She was not quite 3 bags, yes sir, 3. And she talked the Vice Marshal's wife on her first name terms, and he got red in the face. How dare you talk to the Air Chief Vice Marshal? No, she's my friend, matey. So you know that civility that comes from being in the military. I don't think everyone can join the military. It is very easy to say I'll fight for my country, but you have to have a certain negativity in you where you're prepared to give up your ghost to somebody else who tells you shoot and you shoot.
I don't think that's right anyway. It's like protesting in a way, because unless you have within you the urge, otherwise you become a mercenary, you'll fight for any cause. But if you believe in what you're fighting for, then that's different. You have a cause, and it comes more from the spirit.
Then you'll be constantly looking for that cause and helping it, whether it's by speaking, whether talking, whether mixing with the right people, whatever, writing, whatever.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Then you're totally immersed in that.
Then you fight better, and you also
then people respect you.
And people respect you because they can feel from the vibrations of your voice that you really mean what you say.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think this is why we have a lot of the situation of a lot of post-traumatic stress. My friend was saying she's befriended this guy, and she asked him, because he was in a bit of a state, and she said, "Have you ever killed anyone?" He just didn't reply, and she said, "Oh, I see."
I
and
see.
He said, he said, "It's not the killing that's difficult." He said, "It's living with it afterwards."
But even in car accidents, I've got a guy, I'm no longer his doctor, about 15 years ago. Some old guy just walked in front of him, and he was grey, and it was dark, he had his lights on, it was raining. I mean, there's no way I could blame the driver. And yet he's living with that crime in his mind. You know, it is often very difficult because we are trained. Doesn't matter how much I tell him, it's not your fault. Because he's been told it's your fault. So, you know, children are very innocent. They can let go. Children can try.
Can they though? I mean, I know lots of families where divorce comes up. You must talk about this in certain groups as well. From 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 or so. I mean, you're smart and you're intelligent,
and emotionally sharp.
But my parents have gotten divorced. I mean, somehow this is my fault. This must be my
Children
fault.
do carry it, yes.
And it hurts. And it carries on into your later life. I mean, I never blamed myself for my parents' divorce properly because my father was a bit of a schmuck, you know, to be honest.
Schmuck is the name of a ship.
No, it's Yiddish for
whatever.
Just Google.
Okay.
And
schmuck.
Schmuck. He was a schmuck.
Oh, schmuck, I know.
Yeah. And my mother was a bit, you know, loosey goosey. You know, I mean, so that both of them, you know, equally responsible for the breakdown of the relationship. But as children, it still scars you.
How have you grown up so cute and cool that you can call him a schmuck and her loosey-goosey without getting red in the face, and you can talk about it on national radio?
I didn't know.
What have you done? You must have done something.
My grandfather was an impresario. I told you this, and it's like very few things embarrass me. Because you have to let go of your dignity if you're going to perform. You have to let go.
But what is dignity except your own creation?
Well, dignity is letting go of this preconceived notion of who you are.
Yes, that aspect of your persona.
And if I speak in public and I want to get a certain message across, I'm not worried. I have to stop worrying about what people think of me.
Yes. Otherwise, you won't speak the truth.
Yeah. But when it comes to marriage, I mean, did affect me and a lot of my friends who have divorced parents. That you go when you go into a relationship with someone, you go, well, do I really want to do this? I'm just going to end up like my parents. I mean, they all started.
Everyone marries. Every girl marries her father. Every boy marries his mother. So we ultimately do. Let me tell you something. On Facebook, something beautiful came the other day. This young Indian boy had passed his driving test, waiting to get a car, got a job, did very well in his college. I went to his dad and said, "Dad, I want to get married." He said, "Say sorry." Dad, but I've come first in my class. I'm buying a beautiful car tomorrow. I want to marry. He said, "Just say sorry." So the fellow thought, well, just please the old boy. Said, "I'm sorry." He says, "Now you're ready for marriage." But I think the bigger theme in it is it's about loss of ego.
Yeah.
In friendship, like Ali and I are very good friends. There's nothing he can say that can hurt me. If something I disagree with, I'll tell him 2 days later, which is not my style, Mike. I'm right in your face. But I'll wait and say, when you said that, this is what actually happened. He said, You know that mongoose story, that Indian old story about the mongoose was left with the child by the parents to look after the child. When the parents came back, the mongoose had blood on its mouth and they killed the mongoose. When they went inside, it was the blood of a snake that the mongoose had killed.
Yeah.
So often we see one small aspect of someone's persona and label them. I'm often called Islamophobic. I mean, 90% of my friends in Newcastle are Muslims. They don't think I'm Islamophobic. Actually, I respect Islam. And that is why I don't want others to put it in a negative frame. But it's very easy. Oh, Dr. Anand is Islamophobic. Why? Because they can't be as good as me in speaking. They can't come on the radio. They can't go to the rallies. They can't do so many things. I took this to our Joel Yoli. And I said, look, I'm really hurt by people who are quite intelligent. Maybe not as clever as me, but clever enough. And they just hate me. He says, because they want to be like you. But have the belief they can't. So often, that finger-pointing business is true, isn't it? If there's something in Risaria that I want to do, but I don't have the courage or the time or the belief I can do it, I hate her. Instead of saying, she's quite smart in this, let me learn from her.
Yeah, but the difference between other people and you is that what Risaria can't do, Risaria can do and you can't. You recognize and you say, can you do this for me? And then you find other people to do other things.
Yes.
You build teams.
Yes, but I am different. If Risaria's got something I want, I'll bloody well learn and do it myself.
Oh, I will do the same thing, but if I can't, I'll still get her to do it.
Coming from India and being a Hindu, team is not my idea.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me. Because teams really frustrate me. Because I go with high octane, 130 octane and so on. And they're saying, well, I couldn't come because, sorry, I was late because, oh my God.
No, I know what you mean. But
So how do you cope with that? Teamness.
Oh God, this is it actually has come up in the last couple of weeks several times. What I do is I find people who can keep up with me. It's as simple as that. You find people.
But that's not a team. That's your proteges, people who are identical to you, other meerkats running with you.
Team proteges. It's still a team. I agree with Risaria. It's still a team.
And this is what we're talking about on the film team, because when we did boot camp in Middlesbrough, he was saying the main thing is finding out if you're working together on the same story.
With different angles.
Different angles. It's building up the team, because that's why filmmaking takes quite a while to develop, because you have to build the teams up. People are good at going off and shooting, single-handed a document.
They're very good in that dimension.
In that dimension, but to actually create a film, you need to build the team up.
Because you can't do everything yourself.
You can't do everything yourself. And so it's finding the team that shares your vision.
So it is different from people-pleasing.
Oh, it's no, in fact, it's the opposite of people-pleasing, because I'm working on a project right now that requires 2-3 other people to cooperate with me. But we're equally blunt as each other.
Yeah.
So they can cope with each other.
Oh, yeah, and listen, if Judith makes a mistake, I will tell her to her face, or I will tell her in chat, or I will tell her in any number of what you've made a mistake, Judith. This is exactly what we needed to do, not this. Okay, that's fine. And then she moves on and she does the thing. And she will
equally tell you
because-
when she sees something wrong.
Because the thing in an actual team is, even if there are leaders and a pecking order, you still have to be able to tell the other person, could we do it this way, or you've made a mistake.
But that's the beauty of Japanese way of working in an industry. Everyone has a right to tell the director. The parking lot is not the director's special lot. It's just so there's a democracy there.
Well, I wouldn't call it democracy, but I think it's called respect of talent.
So because you're the youngest or the least paid doesn't mean you don't know.
If
You might know more than the top dog.
If you look in so many churches and cathedrals, and you look up at the stained glass windows, individually you might have individual colours, but it's only when the sun shines through and you see it all as a
The whole
whole
spectrum.
that you get the full effect. And it's what you need is somebody that's like the lead in between the pieces of glass to hold it all together.
Yeah.
Wow, what a beautiful.
One of the greatest.
He's a great illustrator, isn't it? I think you are a visualizer, isn't it? You know, in NLP they say some people, some auditory, some are visualizers. I think you're very strongly visualizer.
One of the greatest. The Prime Minister for a second. I was watching a film last night, and there was, which I usually don't do, but anyway, there's a line, and then there's one of the actors is talking to this guy who's playing a member of a team, and he's particularly weak, but he says, you know, team is like a human body. If you don't have hands, then you're not complete. If you don't have a head, you're not complete. So be part of the body. And so the guy says, so which part of the body am I?
Yes, take it from there. Yeah.
No, but when people say I'm only a cleaner in St. Nicholas Hospital, that's a very sad statement. If you're not going to clean St. Nicholas Hospital, everyone will die of botulism or something. Weird one.
Exactly.
So, but it's respecting everybody
Yeah.
for what they have.
Yes.
Yeah, nobody as I was saying before, it's the lead in between, but nobody notices the lead.
But the lead should be so smart that it doesn't get noticed.
Well,
That's
but then you
smart
need a certain type of person for that.
Well, it's like I remember some time ago you were talking about creating films with different soundtracks.
Oh yes.
And you can create a completely different film with a different soundtrack, and you don't notice the soundtrack when it fits. But if it jars, then it's.
So it should be unnoticeably good.
It should. The whole thing should just create an experience.
But doesn't the sound and the music, say of a film, with the film music and the songs and all, they create the emotion, don't they?
Yeah.
What you see visually, to an extent, but it's the sound that really gets you.
It underlines
and
it.
Underpins it. Yes.
Yeah.
Because did they have two movies which were identical except the sound quality was different? They had the same soundtrack, but one was like a telephone level and amateur mic level, and one was like super duper surround sound, everything mixed proper. And movie makers were asked which is the better visual. They won't mention anything about the sound. And they all said the one with the better sound is a better movie. But it's only the better sound. So sound is, and I have lost it now, but I had 37 shots of someone going in a yellow taxi in New York, passing through Bronx and everything. And when you put da-da-da-da-rum, pum, 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 it felt very nice and cute. But when you had dong, 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 you think that black guy is going to rape me or kill me or murder me or puncture my tire. And it's only the sound difference. So when I've actually run these ones with audiences and they say, oh, that's a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's the same damn movie, man.
Yeah.
And they won't believe it. So sound, I think, is quite a powerful thing. But I think sound is a very feminine thing if you try to understand yin and yang thing. Hearing is a very yin thing, I think. Visualizing is a very yang thing. Is the hunter-gatherer looking out like a meerkat, standing up and looking here and there. That's like a hunter, I think. That's my feeling. And I think we men, us three in the room, develop our femininity through these activities like painting, like our illustrator here, like photography, like the arts. I think the arts are very yin. They are expressive of your innermost feelings. Now, you're not agreeing 100%, so what do you think?
I'd never thought of the senses as being yin or yang. And
No, the process we go through.
the process.
The senses
yes.
lead us somewhere.
Yes.
So the process of hearing, I mean, listening and hearing are two different things.
Mm.
You know, microphone. This microphone also can hear, but it doesn't listen.
Mm.
There's no perceptionality in it. You take photographs, but they are just dot matrix kind of thing.
Well, some photographs speak more than others.
To you.
No, not even just to me. As
to
an
me.
audience. But there's a photograph. If there's a photograph,
Yeah.
Yusuf Karsh, a famous Canadian Armenian, took one of his most famous photographs. It's from behind of a man playing the cello,
Okay.
and he was in a museum, portrait gallery in Ottawa, and he was still alive because he's dead now. And there's a man stood in front of this photograph, watching the photograph of the man playing.
So
the
there's a
cello.
man watching in the gallery a picture.
And then he walked up to this man, and Karsh, the artist, says to him, he says, "Why you've been stood here in front of this photo for the
For a
last
long time.
15 minutes? I've been listening to Dvorak."
Okay. Now,
Right. Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but the photograph itself per se has no quality except to the listener or the watcher. You need an audience.
But it's engaged the viewer's imagination.
Yeah, but if you share the same photograph with, say, a Chinese peasant, or a dog, or a cat, or a Martian, it has no meaning. What I'm saying is there is no perception in the photograph. Like alcohol is not is the cause of drunkenness, but alcohol is not in itself intoxicated. It's the effect it has on us. So the photograph or the painting you make is what it is to us. Like women are attractive to men, but bitches are not attractive to dogs unless they sniff them. So different things work in a different field. So your photograph has meaning to me because I speak the same language, I like you, I want to see, and so on. But to some third person, it may mean nothing at all. And I think that's the beauty of art, isn't it? It does different things to different people.
Well, that results in a lot of art snobbery as well.
Yes.
Because all of it is perception.
Yes.
And the perception is a result of each individual's experiences over their life. So everybody has a different experience.
Different take on it?
A different take. You can go through a park and one person's talking to you and oh, look at those lovely roses. Look at that hydrangea. Bam, and the other person hasn't got a garden, it has no interest. So he has no perception of that until he starts maybe having a garden and doing the same sort of thing. And then they can share the perception afterwards and they can come to agreement that's beautiful in their own particular way. But it's all, as you say, it's all in the perception, and the perception
which you can hone and make better all the time.
Yeah.
No.
Last night I went down to Cullercoats, round about sunset, and of course, being on the east coast, you can't see the sunset. But what you can see is the light on the sea, and the breakers. The light on the breakers was incredible, and it was actually mild enough I could sit and watch it. Usually I'm walking along, keeping warm, and suddenly this guy rode up on a bike and he just went, "Oh, this is amazing!" And we just stood there, two people on a rampage of appreciation.
A rampage of appreciation, tsunami of appreciation.
Yes, and my friend rang, and I said what we'd been doing, and she said, "Oh, and there's a rainbow appeared."
Oh, wow.
And then she was in London. She said, "Oh my goodness, there's a rainbow just in front of me." She was driving, and so we're sharing this rampage about
of colours,
and light.
But then appreciation is something we grow into. I mean, would you say then art has to be cultivated? Well,
depends where you plant it.
Where you plant it.
I think it's an innate sense of beauty.
Yes.
Which comes from opening your spirit to the sense of beauty.
To the sense of wonderment.
But the trouble is that our sense of beauty has been so distorted. People see beauty in such ugly things just for the sake of being different. And then everybody says, "Oh, isn't that marvellous?"
Well,
and yet in actual fact, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah.
You know?
And in modern art, you can show a toilet pan, and it's modern art.
Yeah, that's more about concept, isn't it?
Well, there's an entire conversation to be had about modern art, but getting back to what you were saying, you were in Cullercoats.
Yeah.
I mean, the name is quite good, you know.
Colour. Yeah.
You were in Cullercoats I was in Jesmond a week ago now, on a Sunday night. It was tipping down rain. The wind was blowing like crazy. The woman I was with was bringing to a meeting. She just huddled over like this. Can we just get there as quick? Maybe she's dattering away. And we finally get to very close to the house where we are, and it's absolutely pitch dark. She looked up, and the sky was clear, and we saw the stars. It was still raining sideways, and it was still windy, and it was still good, but for about 5 minutes, we just stared at the stars. You forgot about that. But what that speaks to me of is a mind that's open to sensations and seeing things. A lot of minds are closed. They're just preoccupied on the thing like, will I watch Channel 5 this afternoon? Will I have my frozen pizza? Oh, such and such a thing is coming on, and they're so focused on these things and television, they've forgotten all these natural things.
But are they not also trying to be in fashion? They talk about the things everybody else talks about. And I think personally that's the most boring thing in the world. Why should I talk about what you talk about? How will I learn from you if you're not different from me? So people have a comfort zone.
Yeah, and it's been completely open. And what happened last night, one of my housemates works at a fish restaurant where they grill all the fish on charcoal, and they'd had to close early because of the weather, and so they had all this lobster and squid left, and he came in at 10 o'clock at night with just trays of lobster and squid, and we hadn't really had a meal that evening because we're living on leftovers from our Yule dinner on Sunday, which was amazing. And he just said, right, it has to be cooked tonight. We have to eat it, tonight or tomorrow, but it must be cooked tonight. And he just said about cooking it. And it reminded me when I was in Norway, the women there said when the boats came in, the women, she said, my mother would get up in the middle of the night, no matter what, and they'd just cook the fish then. Because
it's so fresh.
It's so fresh. And it's a gift. And we had we were texting the neighbours, and they're coming in, and people are having squid and lobster, and it was beautiful. And it was being in that moment and really appreciating the abundance. Whereas if you'd said, oh, pop down to the supermarket and get some fish and we'll cook some supper, we'd have gone, oh, no thanks.
So there's no excitement in that boring kind of existence, isn't it? Supermarket, Barclay card, 10 pence discount, bags cost 5 pence. People get lost in the mercy. My own sister-in-law in Canada, she was fresh in Canada then. They've been there about 25 years. She said, Meenu bhaiya, Meenu is my name. I said, yeah, you can get phone calls at 4 pence a minute and you can get $5 a minute. I said, are you going to get lost in just this mirage and the jungle of commercial bullshit? Or are you going to rise above it and see the beauty of Canada? Are you going to look at the fall? Are you going to Niagara Falls, for instance? Or are you going to just talk about the rates of this company, that company? There are people who live in there, All they talk about is money. They never spend it, they never earn it, but they just talk about it. And I find it quite strange because they're trapped. They're trapped at a very subterranean level of a resource called cash.
You've got to live in the moment, remember and take note of the past, and look forward in hope to the future.
What do you say after that? I think after that we need to have a break.
Sick of the same old radio sound? Then you need vibrant radio sound. Living in a dystopian sci-fi movie. Living in a dystopian sci-fi movie.
Hi, Meatek. You were talking about just your music, and you were talking about 140 characters in Twitter.
Yeah.
Tell me more of your frustrations in Twitter.
My frustrations with Twitter, and it's as a writer you appreciate that what Twitter does to you is it takes a simple line. For example, I really, really enjoyed the meal I just had at this restaurant. Well, in that sentence, there's apostrophes, there's spaces.
That all takes up characters.
And really, really, really.
It takes up massive numbers of spaces.
Oh, yeah. And then so I have to drop a couple of the reallys, Then some of the words, there's no space anymore, so I'm just jamming them
Yes, you're trying
together,
to,
and it's not pretty anymore on the sheet of paper, if you know what I mean. And then, well, did I really, really, really enjoy? No, okay, let's put one really. Wait, I don't have room for even the really. Enjoyed. I enjoyed. I have to drop the I because I'm missing. So, enjoyed meal at.
So it's like a headline or sub-headline.
Yeah.
And it just loses all of its passion and its meaning.
So Twitter is like an instant meal, isn't it?
It's worse than an instant meal. It's a bit of candy that you crunch for 2 seconds and it's gone. and
Does it have any purpose?
Its purpose is to put information out there and let you know that there's an event coming. By the way, Spice FM is doing something. But I like Spice FM. There's a link. I'm going to click on the link, and then you go to the link, and then you look at the full details. To me, that's the only reason you would use Twitter.
Do you use Twitter?
Rarely. I'm looking at using Blab, which is the
What?
Blab, which is the video
Version of Twitter.
No, it's connected to Twitter. You need a Twitter account to access it, but you can create a video of any length, and you can interact with people. So you can have. In fact, I've just had a text. I'm hope she'll be coming on in a week or two. A woman who's trialing
a female blabber.
A female blabber who's interviewing. She's been on Spice before. We had her on. She's Risaria, who converted to Islam. Yes. And she's going to India in January.
Right.
And she's wanting to interview, she's calling it the Revolutionary Woman, and she's wanting to interview women on Blab, because she said...
In India from now, here?
She's going to do it from... She's going to start with people in England, and then she's planning to interview people in India as well.
But through Blab, she doesn't need to be physically there.
She doesn't need to be physically there, but she's planning to go in there anyway. And she was saying there it's much more interactive because you can have 4 people on together.
Okay.
And people
like
can
a conference
come in,
call kind of thing.
But you can have unlimited numbers messaging in, and then you can swap the people round.
Did you know that Deepak Chopra does a live broadcast every day? I don't know
really?
how I clicked in and says, this is Deepak Chopra. I'm now sitting in Melbourne or wherever. I'm waiting for my flight, blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about yoga. So from sitting in Melbourne in airport, suddenly he's talking about ancient wisdom.
Brilliant.
I like him for that. So he is on my phone. I'll find out how I did it. It was just a pure error. It was meant to be synchronicity and all that.
Maybe it's Blab.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, could be.
Yeah.
There's so many things you can do. You can actually push things to YouTube first before you put it on Facebook. Now, I don't do that. I just directly go on Facebook for my shorties that I do in the car. But that's to tell them that we're doing a radio show. Please listen to it.
Yeah.
And I'll give some highly impassioned negative or positive ideas so people actually listen.
Yeah.
But if I go through YouTube, I can earn money. I didn't know that.
Yes.
So who knows YouTube enough to teach me how to make some? Because I do get a lot of.
You need
because
a lot
you
of
can get
views,
the adverts on, yes, and you can with your Facebook account. I don't know how it works now, but I know that my niece had because she had the right demographic. They would pay her to put adverts through her Facebook account.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my case, it's the other way around. It says you violated someone's copyright. However, we're not going to punish you, but you'll put on ads on your thing. Who cares if you put ads on my thing?
Yeah.
If somebody's listening, they can click the ads off anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not such a big deal. And because most of my things I put out are homegrown, they're not copied from anywhere else. I don't get punished anymore. But the second thing is, in YouTube, if you put something, particularly things like Amir Khan, he did a series. He's very unpopular in India at the moment, but he was extremely popular for what he did at one time. If you do even 30 seconds, you get stopped in all countries,
Really?
Really heavily. Which makes me feel, what the hell is this man about? Or the company he runs is about? It is a bit like you go to a doctor's practice and the doctor is very nice and thank you very much, good bedside manner. But the staff are rough dinosaurs, So the doctor is employing dinosaurs to keep you away from him. And once you reach him, oh, nice to see you, I haven't seen you for ages. Or you, doctor, I've been waiting 3 months to see you, because of your dinosaurs. Is it a bit like that or not? What do you think? Because if people are employing other people, like Rottweilers, to keep you off them, then they are the Rottweiler, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't fully understand it. I just know, there's different views. And one of the things I quite like is that they don't have a dislike button. Because I think that that works. And
No, but like is a very odd term. If I see someone is murdered and raped, I click like means I've seen it. So why shouldn't we have a button saying seen?
yeah,
Like means you actually like all the killings that I'm watching.
You don't need to click like. You can put a comment. You can say,
But comment is too much hard work.
right, yeah.
That's what emojis
I don't
are
click
for.
things like that.
Emojis are good for-
Emojis, yeah.
Emojis are fun.
I use emojis.
Those funny faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is harm in saying I've noted, seen?
Yeah, but
viewed?
you're not saying that. You're saying you like it.
No, but you like it. I mean, if I'm seeing someone being murdered in Palestine,
Yeah, so don't click like.
but
Just
I
put-
want to let that person know I've seen it. So,
Yeah, use the comment box and put as
Yeah.
yeah, but
An
don't you
emoji,
find
yeah.
that, I find that very restrictive. Why can't I just say I've seen this? Goodbye, go away.
well, type that in if that's what you want to say.
Too much effort typing.
I mean, and you've
Well,
got pretty.
what I'm saying is they're not enough. I mean, what's wrong with dislike even?
Well, I think it's quite useful that they're doing this, because then you'd end up with all this negative stuff. I think it's quite clever.
Okay. So just liking it or not is good enough without
good enough.
disliking it, hating it.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
I mean, ideally, you should have a
Under the
scene button.
Yes, that's exactly
That would
what
be
I'm saying.
that would be nice. I mean, and look, I don't run Facebook.
No, you
I
don't.
can't tell them what to do. We could try. We could set up a protest.
But
But you know, a mate of mine has been trying to get me to turn off the autocorrect on my phone for the longest. I have no idea how to do it. I've tried, and it keeps coming back. And I was making a particularly strong point, and autocorrect came up like a drunken ant
Yes.
and put in some silliness that was incredibly funny, mostly embarrassing. You know, so I live with autocorrect.
Mm.
do you know what is next to O? I. I is next to O. So sometimes instead of doc, it goes.
Yeah.
So I'm extra careful, you know.
Yeah.
And I can't remove that from autocorrect saying, otherwise autocorrect says DIC straight away, you know.
Yeah. No, but autocorrect it'll just random things in the English language or Polish or Italian or French that you really had no concept were in the language. They will throw it out there, and you're going, well, I was typing this. It seemed pretty clear, and I said send, and then your friend is going, what do you mean by?
Yeah.
I won't pull it up, but it's. I wanted to say non sequitur, which is the actual proper Latin thing that I was.
And what came out?
It's what came out. Let's.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
like
Try typing it in.
Non sequitur means it doesn't follow.
Yes.
It's not logical.
It's a bit like my
Opposite of QED, isn't it? Quadera demonstrator means I've demonstrated what I
a
wanted.
bit like my
Non
stepdaughter.
sequitur means it doesn't tally.
It's a
Yeah.
bit like my stepdaughter who orders stuff from Asda online. And if they haven't got something that's exactly what's there, they'll take something off the shelves, and she gets some ridiculous
Really
stuff.
random.
Yeah. And you know, which has no connection with.
You can't get beetroot, so you get puppy food.
Yeah, something. Yeah,
Yeah.
something absolutely stupid. You know.
Oh God.
So it makes you wonder who they employ to pick stuff off the shelves. And they've got a list in front of them, and it bears no resemblance to what you've actually got.
And I think this goes down to the thing about the jobs you do.
Yes.
Because they all matter.
Yes.
And so if you take care, okay, you can get away with just putting a substitute in.
Yeah.
But to have a genuine substitute, you need somebody who's
Yeah.
really good at their job.
Yes, you found a non sequitur replacement.
yeah. The conversation, and I'm being very careful not to what's he done that he could be arrested for? And I said, well, there was that time he used a non-dewy stir in an argument.
Non-dewy stir sounds like some
Non-dewy
food where
Yeah.
you use
You know,
some gooey stuff and sweet and.
I meant to say non sequitur. I was typing non sequitur, and
But
they just put that in
Dewey's
instead.
Donald Duck's nephew. Duck soup.
What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc?
So I mean that's you know as if you're a comedian, you know, just write your script and then see what autocorrect can do for you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You got quite impassioned there.
Yeah, you got something off your chest now. That's good. That's good. And it's not your undergarments that you got off. Yes.
Well, you know, I am sort of dying from flu. I'm not sure. You know.
Or man flu.
Man flu. Yes.
What is man flu? Is this meant to
I've never had it.
It's a chimney that a man can get up rather than.
Oh, man flu. Well, somebody said there was an Indian guy, and he said to everyone in the ship, "I'll produce a mango," and they knew there was no mango on the ship. He took the money, put on his swimming trunks, jumped off shouting, "Mango!" It's a bit like that, man flu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is man flu? Is it men pretending to be more ill than they are because they're not used to being tough inside?
Allegedly, yeah.
Whereas women put up with period pains, childbirth, postpartum depression, and they still carry on. And that's why they survive to the old people's home, and the men are all gone.
Yes, well, I mean, they've got to put
Died of man flu, died of man flu, died of man flu.
Well, they've got to put it with men as well,
Women.
Women,
Yes, a
full of wool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, man flu.
You said you had man flu, so you tell us what it is.
Man flu. I've been accused of having man flu. I mean, if I'm going to spend 3 days in bed because I'm deathly ill, I mean, I can't breathe. Everything hurts. I mean, it actually does hurt, and I can't get out. And you're not going to go on Facebook and say, "Oh, I've got all of these aches and pains," and it's like, "Oh, I'm a bit ill. I'm sorry, I can't go to your thing, and I've got flu." It's like, "Oh, well, and then you just."
So why do you want to share your virus on Facebook?
Well, you're telling your friend. It's not on Facebook. You're telling your friend in a private message. You're going,
Okay.
You're going like, "Well, I can't go to your picnic because I'm going to infect everybody."
Plus, I'm not fit to walk.
Right, but. Then they go on with the man flu, which is man flu properly defined as, well, you're sick for 3 days. You're properly sick. You are dying for 3 days. But on the 4th and the 5th day that you stay back, well, you're going like, "Well, I feel a bit delicate. I don't want to go outside. I think I'll watch Jeremy Kyle for a couple of hours, or
to make myself feel worse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
or I'll catch up on Game of Thrones or something like that, and I'll drink copious amounts of tea, and I'll sleep an entire afternoon and you're giving yourself another extra day off. That's the man flu.
You do not think we don't listen to our bodies enough? When I do filming, it's very intense because 6 hours I'm just focused. I'm not one who puts a camera and goes for a walk. It's very tiring. And then I'm quite tired. So if the next day, for instance, yesterday, I just stayed in bed. I didn't do anything. I just played on Facebook. Facebook is it's a game. Just tick, tick, tick with my fingers, and that's it. Otherwise, especially when I'm retired, I don't need to report for work. Why should we be up and ready at like a Boy Scout, ready at 6 a.m.?
And I think that's it. It's learning to listen to your body and what it needs. And sometimes, I think it's because I had a period of illness. I learned that sometimes you just need to rest,
Yes,
and
and
then you don't get the illnesses.
Exactly what I was saying. If I listen to my body, now I take vitamin D because I've got a brown skin. A lot of white people also short on vitamin D. I take that. I have a juicer to make about £1.10 worth of fruit and veg, more importantly, and that's about it. And then I have that in the morning. Then I also record my sleep once a month or once in 14 days through sleep app. Or rapid eye movement. And I don't get stressed too much. If I get angry, I just tell them to their face, and then it's 10 seconds gone, and then it's finished. Now they can carry the virus. But a lot of us carry a lot of pain. I should have said this, well, didn't say it then. And if it's not worth saying that, then learn not to feel that. I sit in a lot of very awkward situations. I don't take it home.
Actually, I have a question for Risaria.
Please.
I have a friend of mine who has normal, regular physical symptoms that you would ascribe to things like, poor eating or a bug and things like that. But I'm convinced that about 40% of his symptoms are his body rejecting all of the stress that he's personally putting himself through, rather than face the situation that is giving him a hard time.
It's because it's going to manifest somewhere. And if you're suppressing it, it'll find the easiest, the way out that it can find. So something will go wrong somewhere with it. It might vary according to whoever it happens to be and their own personality. But if they're suppressing something, it's like trying to stop water. It'll find some other way.
Yes.
Or if you're trying to stop a weed from going there, it'll find a way up there. So the analysis is difficult, I should imagine, in some of those cases.
And I think sometimes it's not about venting it, it's acknowledging it to yourself.
Well, it's the same as that.
Just accepting it.
Accepting it. It reminds me that there was a guy who, when I was in Germany, there was a guy who a lot of people reacted very angrily to. And in fact, I was leading the meditation, and we actually had a row in the meditation.
I hate you!
It was that provocative. It was that provocative, and I just thought, oh my goodness, you know. And I didn't want to let him get away from it. And I keep finding random things like he'd put a bucket on the bucket he was cleaning up with on the ironing board, and I'd said to him, look, we iron all the good shirts on there, please don't put it, or toast, a plate of toast, things like this.
Yeah.
And I could feel the anger in me, and if he'd been there, I thought, right, if he's here, I'll tell him. And I could just feel the anger dissipate, and then I just laughed and left it for him to move.
Yeah.
And when I met him, I'd completely forgotten these things. And it was then.
So you're meeting a different person.
Yeah.
From your perspective, because you are only what I pretend you are.
Yeah.
There's no Risaria for me except the Risaria I have created in my mind.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So similarly, you had completely shifted that. So he was a different guy because you had shifted.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. It is true, you know. You know, I used to teach a lot of heart rate variability relaxation. And I went to the States and learned all about it, etc. So I was telling this woman, I said, what happens? You reach home and you have a row, you're a single parent, you've got a 16-year-old daughter, both of you are hormonal. If it works at the same time, fine. She said, no, we are exact. When I'm high, she's low and so on. So there's a mismatch there. And I said, she's a pimply teenager, you know. She's looking for sexuality, she's wanting to find her freedom, she's under you, but she doesn't want to be under you, and all that stuff. So I said, what happens? She said, just when I park my car, my heart misses a beat. I said, what? You're preparing for the battle? She says, yes. So she goes home wanting a battle with her daughter, not realizing that she wants it. So I taught her the breathing technique. I said, just 5 minutes before, you just do the breathing all the way. Next day she phones, I said, breathe, and we didn't have a row. She said something nasty. I said, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And the daughter was completely disarmed because the daughter was getting something out of it too.
Yeah.
You know, if I say nasty things to you, you just don't get impressed.
Yeah.
Then I'll stop, I'll get bored. But if you answer back, then I'll answer back, then you'll answer back.
Yeah.
It's when you start engaging with it.
Yes.
And sometimes you realise that when you've been speaking to somebody, they've completely misunderstood you.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what they come back with, there's nothing wrong with it, but you just think, I think explaining's just not going to help at all. And so you just let it ride, and then you get something different out of the conversation and out of the situation.
Yeah, rather than it being a ping pong situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And rather than trying to justify or defend what you've said or explain at great length, because you realise you're actually on a different wavelength.
Yes, and your frequencies are not matching.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, my younger son, Praz, he's full of himself, and we live in the same house.
Yeah.
Now, am I going to say, I pay the rent here, so you will listen to me? Or, whatever he says, I say, okay. Now, he doesn't know what to do with himself because I'm just saying, okay.
Yeah.
So he has to find the answer within himself instead of expecting me to row with him. You know what I'm saying? So, often, people say anything. I go sit in a Pakistani cultural society, a lot of people say things that I don't agree with. Well, that's their problem, not mine. If you're confident in your beliefs, I believe, in your faith, in your beliefs, let's forget faith for the minute, and what you believe in art and this and that, you can say something to people, they can disagree all they like, you just smile.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I went to, when the angel had just become the angel, I had got planted, and when I went to, in the ship that, what's your phrase again, for the angel?
Love where you're planted.
Yes, the angel does love where he's planted, Mr. Gomli. Anyway, I didn't like it that much, but I went to the sage, and not the sage, the onion, what it's called? The Baltic.
Baltic.
I call it the onion, it's easy to remember.
All right.
Yeah.
So I goes there, and there's a model of the angel.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So there's a model of the angel, and that's okay, but there's a tape running explaining the art. And I find that quite sad. That
That it has to be explained.
It has to be explained.
Yeah.
So I said, what's the point of this? And there was this green welly and what do you call those proper Englishmen from the rural areas with the green,
Yeah.
what do you call that? Made in Morpeth kind of jacket.
But a barber jacket.
Barber jacket, yes. Proper.
Right.
They were actually made for the fishermen.
Right. But
Originally, they're very practical.
it's so stylish to have a Range
now
Rover
become trendy.
and trendy. And he was looking at me. I said, don't you agree with me? He was trying to put me down, saying, you little brown Indian guy. That was my perception at least. And I said, look, if art has to be explained, what is the point?
Yeah.
He says, actually, sir, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, he was putting out that I'm a proper art lover. Who are you? You're
Yeah.
just some little guy just
Yeah.
mounting it off. But I think people's reaction is important to art, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean,
There's
how you feel about it.
There's a gallery with
It's
that.
often-
Yeah, go on.
It's often on a for me,
Visceral.
art's often on a visceral
Yes.
level.
Yes.
And that's why I prefer not explaining it, because it just
Yeah.
connects with you.
To me, it's the juxtaposition of shapes and colours,
Mm.
and some are appealing, and some are just. It's like music out of tune.
Yeah.
You know that it just doesn't. It jars.
Mm.
That may be intentional though, to get over
Yeah.
a point. So it depends on what you're aiming at, I suppose. I'm not decrying sort of. You can get away with a bit of jarring because.
And this is what Arto, you met Arto, didn't you?
Yes.
Artopoulos.
Artopoulos
Mm.
with his band, because it's literally just creating sounds.
Mm.
And we did this in the park on Sunday night after our Yule meal.
Is there no policeman in those areas?
No,
Tourists?
they stay well away. They stay well away.
Right.
And so he takes his banjo, which he plays in his own particular way,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
and they're making noises like banging sticks on the ground. And we
Yeah.
just started riffing bits of carols.
Mm.
Riffing.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah. And we just had such fun.
Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
the whole point, you know.
I don't think it would have been much fun to anybody listening.
No, but you enjoyed yourself.
But we enjoyed it.
So whether it's that or you're listening to Moonlight Sonata, it makes no difference. If it touches you, it touches you.
Yeah.
If it enhances you as a person, I mean, you enjoyed it, and that's
Mm.
and something shifted in you probably.
I mean, there was a musician that was playing. It was the very first act on Saturday, and he basically takes his bass guitar. And normally you stand like this with a bass guitar.
Mm.
He sat down on the ground, crossed his legs, and put the guitar down.
Mm.
Like a veena, like an
Yeah.
Indian veena,
And then he was just sort of making these movements across the strings, and he would call these things
like a
songs.
bottleneck guitar,
A bit like the Hawaiian.
Hawaiian guitar, yeah.
But
steel
it was just this stream of consciousness of sound coming off
Yeah.
the guitar that was not discordant, but very. The entire room, there were maybe two people who didn't get it. Everybody else was meditating almost to this sound coming off of this guy for about 20 minutes. And he's an interesting individual himself because he has problems connecting with the rest of the world. This is the only way that he calms himself and everybody around
This is
him.
what in class he'll be called dyslexic and put on Ritalin.
Yeah. He's a brilliant guitarist. I wouldn't talk to him for 20 minutes, but I would listen to his music.
I went to see Simon Thacker. Now, I thought Thacker is a Gujarati name, Simon is a Christian name, so probably he's got a white mother, brown father, shopkeeper, and I'm cooking all this in my head, you know. I set up my camera because I didn't know whether he'd allow it or not, because the first part was going to be an interview on music. And he's an Indian musician, though he's white. He was presenting Indian music. This tall, lanky fellow with slightly red hair, with a Glaswegian accent says, "You're white." And I said, "Yes," and we shook hands. He said, "I'm Simon." I thought, what a change. So already I'm beginning to shift in my rigid thinking ways. Then I thought Indian classical music, I know more than anyone in Newcastle. Actually, I've studied Indian classical music in great depth. So I have some ideas about it. I may not be the best singer, but I know about it anyway. So he goes up, and on the stage he was so fantastic. He made a half-an-hour discussion with the Evening Chronicle's music reporter, I forgot Alan something his name is. And in that he said when he went to Calcutta to learn Baul music, which is ancient Hare Krishna type of thing. Then he went to South India to learn South Indian Carnatic music. Then in Rajasthan he's learning, and he's gone all over the world. So he's about 45, and for 35 years he's been learning music. In that open, gutsy way. He's learned Western classical music degree in Glasgow. Edinburgh I meant. And I was really impressed. But then he said, and in Madras, Chennai, I met this guy who says, "You can't do this unless you're a brown Brahmin. This is my music." And at the end of the conversation, he said, "Anyone in an audience wants to say something?" You know me, I don't stop. And I went and said, I just went up and said, "It's just like religion. If I'm a Hindu and you're a Muslim, and I'm interested in your religion, I'd like to know. But if some Muslim said, you'll never understand. You are not born one." But that is racism. And I said, "What did you do?" He says, to that Brahmin brown South Indian fellow, I said, "Then it's not music." If your music doesn't reach me, it's not music.
Yeah.
It's not for human beings. Yes, it may be all right for your postcode
Yeah.
and your little coterie of people.
Yeah.
But I think art is universal, isn't it? It's beyond humans. I think
course it is,
art is spiritual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
is.
True art. Yeah.
And there's an exhibition on. Are you part of this photographic exhibition
Not
in
yet,
town? All right.
He's a rebel. Nobody
My
likes him.
housemate is. And I've not been able to persuade her on the show yet. I'm working on her. I think it's at the New Bridge Gallery.
I wanted to get in there, but haven't put the
Yeah,
effort in.
it's a lot of different photographers, but it's worth a visit. So
Rich.
There's also
it's
the
on-
difference between art and craft, if there is any difference.
What is the difference?
Now
Tell me.
then, very good.
I think crafty is something. I'm saying crafty
Well,
just to be teasing. Craft is something of practical utility,
I think craft is a means of
making life easy.
no. It's a means
Ah.
to express beauty and art. It's a means to express something. It's the nuts and bolts of I want to make a picture like this that I've got to appear in my consciousness, and I want to put it there. And the craft is the ability to draw a straight line,
Yes,
to
yes.
do this, that, and the other in practical terms.
So is
And
it
I
like-
don't think that there's so much of a difference. It's just a different perception. People argue that craft work is art, but I think it's a balance between the two.
Is art the soul and craft the body?
Yeah, probably.
Is it like science and technology?
I think so. Yeah,
Science is
Well,
a
no.
theoretical model, and technology is making
it's
use
a means of
of it.
expressing it or using it. That's all.
Yeah, learn
And
something.
I think you need both to make a nice piece of art.
We must have a friend Joel here
yes,
because he doesn't believe in action; he believes in thought.
right.
So we have
We
to.
need him. Yeah.
And someone got very annoyed with it. Someone who's not present in the room, whose name shall remain unmentionable. He said, "What does he mean?" And my accent will give it away who I mean. So it's nice to call Joel. It doesn't have to be the end of the month. But
No.
we see if you can get him next Wednesday.
Yes.
Please
Yeah.
see if you can. Okay. He's always good value, and you'll be welcome.
Oh, what?
He's proper Jewish.
Oh, good.
Yes, and he was a fighter pilot in Israel. He gave up all that, came here, started the Philosophical Society, and he's one of the best. As a doctor, let me tell you, he's not one, I think he's in the country's best child psychologist, clinical psychologist. But he's not liked by the parents. Because being Jewish, he talks straight, like this chutzpah, straight to the face. And he tells parents, after a 1.5 hour interview, half an hour with the child, half an hour with the father, half an hour with the mother, he's saying there's absolutely nothing wrong with the child, your marriage stinks. Now, which parent wants to pay money to be told that? But he's as truthful.
So
as that.
there's a young woman that I'm working with for online thing we're putting her called Hinterland. It's going to be a socialist think tank where we're going to get a lot of different writers on a lot of different topics. The basic remit is that we're going to talk about the stuff that's usually considered a bit of a sacred cow in various parts of
You are insulting a Hindu here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm doing that on purpose.
Please do.
And what we want to do is we want to have these discussions about various topics on a couple of different levels. The most simplistic, sort of medium understanding of things, and then deep, long, proper discussions about certain things so we can actually move on from simple concepts to perhaps policy later on.
It's
And
almost an academy of socialists.
Exactly. And breaking down some of the barriers people seem to have about, I can talk about this, but we definitely can't talk about what. Tell me the ones you don't want to talk about, and I will talk about it.
Exactly.
Let's talk about it.
Exactly.
Well, this woman, she's trained in art. She should be an art curator. Instead, she's doing customer service at Metro Center.
Okay.
Now, so she was going on about a certain thing, and then she's talking about how policy works, how you have a certain amount of input, how it gets processed, and it comes out as policy, and it becomes
a rule, kind of.
Becomes a rule, becomes a law. And I said, well, did you study political science? That's David Easton's box. She said, no, I never did political science. This just made sense to me. And that's how insightful she is. Okay? Some people are insightful, other people are not insightful. But insightful people take a while to realize just how smart they are. And they don't necessarily have tools to take their insight and turn it into something like David Easton's box. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, at that moment in her head, she had invented David Easton's box, even though it had been invented.
She didn't know the
100 years
name.
ago.
Yeah. But she came to the conclusion by herself.
Exactly.
Don't you think that is the point of some geniuses, that they create something which we already know but haven't put it together?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts
resonates.
appearing all around the world.
Yes.
Now, why didn't I see that?
Yeah.
before?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then certain words become part of our vocabulary more and more and more. You know? Yes, because I know in the Law of Attraction, in Think and Grow Rich, when it was published, they removed every reference that mentioned the word vibration in the original when they originally published it. And now vibration and resonance are in everyday language. Even my mother uses these words now. And I always regard my mother as a yardstick of what's current.
So when you say hardware to her, does she think of the nails and hammers, or does she think of a computer? What does your mother think, do you think?
No, she isn't that au fait with computers yet, but she uses her iPad and she can take a photograph on it.
She'll probably think of 4 candles.
Yes.
No, but
I watched that again.
No, but what you said is quite important. If she's using the iPad, who cares whether she calls it hardware or software?
Yeah.
It's a utilitarian.
Yeah.
I take that view, because a lot of doctors coming to medicine just don't know how homeopathy works. But nobody knows how aspirin works.
No.
It just does. No, I mean, 30% of all drug testing and all proves that it's all placebo. 30%. 70% of patients get better. Doesn't matter their psychiatric condition. Doesn't matter the drug they take. So are you telling me it's a scientific study? It's a load of rubbish. Do you know that this double-blind trial business, double-blind means I give you something, then I give you the placebo, then I give you the same thing and notice the results. Okay, so you two are, I'm the scientist, right? You two are random people, meaning hundreds and thousands of you. Okay, if I give her the chalk and call it tetracycline, and if I give you the tetracycline, who do you think will have the side effects? You will. Chalk doesn't have side effects. And then when we swap, so the person on the real drug knows they're on the real drug. And so all this double blind is nonsense. And to take it to a yet higher level, they were studying rats and drugs that cause cancer. Of course, the poor rats are designed for us humans to abuse them, so we test them for all this. And on box number 35, the rat never got cancer. So they put a webcam. And do you know what they found? That the 35 rat's nest was getting cleaned by a young biologist, female, who was being kind to it, who was stroking it and feeding it. And that protected that rat, never mind a human. So I think animals understand love as much as any one of us. You see on Facebook, there's so much, amazing expression of love between different animals.
But it's not just sentient animals, it's also true about water, isn't it?
Water has a memory.
Well, if you have 2 glasses of water, and you lovingly stir this water or look after it and send positive thoughts, and then you freeze it into droplets, the one that has had all the love forms beautiful crystals, so snow crystals, but the other one are ugly and
Actually, Professor Emoto did this.
That's right, yes, exactly.
The Japanese guy, Emoto. And if we are 70% water, with the person who's cooked the food for us, whether she's our mother who loves you regardless, unconditionally, or whether she's a girl working in Kentucky Fried Chicken or one of these, is worried about whether she's getting pregnant or not, is more concerned about will she get paid, will I get thrown out of the house, should I spend on my boyfriend's watch or shall I pay the gas? The kind of energy she's putting into the food that she's cooking is not quite the same as what your mother would. And I do think that it makes a difference.
But there's also another thing which might be controversial.
Get closer to the mic, the ambulance gets louder than you.
We've got to realise that water in itself doesn't have any sort of personality or anything like that. But the beings that we can't see, that people used to call fairies, which were recognised throughout the whole world before anybody knew each other, they are the ones who look after the stones, the rocks, the plants and whatnot. So
The
if you
elementals.
yes, the elemental beings, which, people poo-poo, but nevertheless, they're the ones who are the, if you like, the whole universe is like a hotel, we're the guests therein. And yet, there has to be some beings who do the housekeeping, keep things in order. make things, show things, move things. And they're the ones who are the housekeepers. And we are the ones who have to be careful about what we do in the house. Just like anybody else, you don't make a muck up of it.
Well, what he's saying is so true. Is that I was raised Polish Catholic, and
so Polish and Catholic, like Wałęsa.
Yeah. But you got to understand that when you're raised Polish, there's the entire being of what Polishness is within the culture. Now, a very, very long time ago, many centuries ago, Polish people adopted Christianity. But they never really abandoned the old ways.
Because they were right.
Now, the old ways, elves, fairies, imps,
they remained in the culture.
Oh, well, they moved from, we'll call it the state religion, to family medicine, to stories that you tell children, Baba Yaga and all the rest of that. And they never left. We have traditions that are done within a Catholic context that are very old and are part of the old ways, and they're more important than any of the Catholic tradition, which is why ideologically you would go into, but it makes no sense. Why are you doing this? I mean, as a Catholic or a Jew or as a Muslim, you shouldn't be doing any of these things. But those are the old ways. The old ways don't go away for a very simple reason, because there's something to them.
Yeah. There's something to them. They've grown from the soil. Now, I think religion adjusts to culture, and if it doesn't, it causes a big problem. Islam came to India. Whatever you might say, whichever way, I've got my own views, and people don't like it. It came to India, but it invented Sufism and Qawwali. You can't go and sing Qawwali in Saudi Arabia. They'll kill you. But in India, Pakistan, Qawwali is very much part of the life. So the ancient ways of worshipping have got adopted and adapted, like you're saying there, like in India. So whenever religion travels, if it doesn't adjust to the culture, it will die. It has to adjust to the culture. So the Muslim in China is not the same as the Muslim in Hyderabad, the same as the Muslim in Sahara Desert, in one of these African countries. It is a different, and same with the Hindus. The Hindus here are different from the Hindus now in India, are different from the Hindus in, what are these countries, West Indies. Some of them have a lot of Indian slave labor. So the culture remains, but they have Africanized it because they are living with Africans. The food they eat and so on. So, but I think culture really is from the soil. It grows automatically and naturally.
But there's a little
you can't just say it's wrong. In my religion, it's wrong. It just pervades it.
But what we're saying is it's a little bit more than just culture. At the risk of some of my atheist friends hearing this, when I was a little boy, we were at summer camp, and we had always been aware of these other creatures. And we decided on a beautiful, beautiful sunny day, the weather forecast was saying, sunshine, no clouds for at least 3 days. And there was this particularly old stretch of forest, and we went in there. We went in there, and we danced, and we said some old words, and we spoke to the spirits that we felt that were there. And we asked them to make it rain. Not only did it rain, I feel slightly guilty about this, not only did it rain, but it washed out the road near where we were, because they'd gotten a little excited.
Now, you haven't wiped this memory out of your head. To me, it's a miracle. But when you say miracle, the people who believe in the official religion say, no, only God can do miracles, only Moses can do it. No, I think miracles happen all the time. I mean, obviously, those are massive humans that are much bigger than us. So their miracles are much bigger. But every day miracles happen.
But the whole thing is that, how can I put it, there's a development of the human spirit. Where at the beginning, people could see because they weren't so intellectually confined. They could see these beings. And they could...
because they haven't been trained not to see them.
Yeah, well, partly that hadn't been rubbished and they haven't been... Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that they knew these things, and of course they could see the powers that they had to do things in the environment, rocks, whatever it happens to be, landslides, floods, all this sort of thing. Now, because we went down an intellectual path, instead of a spiritual path.
I think therefore I am kind of idea.
Yeah. We started to poo-poo all this, and eventually the ability to recognise and see these beings got out of the culture, if you like. Then along came Christianity, which was not intended to replace this. It was just meant to say, right, okay, you've been so far, you've been worshipping these beings as gods, Thor, whatever it happens to be. But the trouble is that these well-meaning people, Christians or whatever religion, said, oh, that's a load of rubbish, forget it.
So they're throwing the baby with the bathwater.
Exactly. They're throwing, whereas in actual fact it should be in harmony. There is no reason why we shouldn't believe in this.
To me, it's easier to explain. People get very hot and bothered about religion and complain. But if I talk about medicine, on which I'm considered an authority, because I've studied the other side too, I don't take any Western drugs. If I'm seriously ill, of course I'll bloody well go to the hospital. If I've got a broken leg, I won't do aromatherapy.
Yeah.
So people have these very stupid little baby arguments.
Yeah.
Western medicine is good when you're really ill. The more ill you are, the better it gets. When you're dead, it's best. If you can walk to your doctors, don't. I say this loud, and I used to say this to my patients, I say this even today. And the living proof is me. I don't take any medication whatsoever. I don't have any blood pressure. I don't have heart disease. Both my parents had diabetes. 3 out of my 4 grandparents had diabetes. I don't. I just keep my weight down. And I don't think, the other thing, Risaria, isn't it? It's about you attract, if you talk diabetes all the time, you bloody well get it.
Yes, that's what you attract.
So your grandfather, my great-grandfather, would smoke 80 woodbines a day. They don't get cancer because they don't know cancer. You talk cancer, 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 cancer. Now I'm in 2 minds because I've got a kit from the government, sending to me, fancy that, to test your poo-poo to see if you got cancer.
Yes, yeah.
Now,
I've had that,
I'm not going to send that. It's too much playing with shit, you know. I'm not gonna and those who like playing with shit and like cancer, please do it. I won't. I was thinking, shall I do it? In fact, I've opened the thing. You have to take 3 samples, collect the poo.
And I just thought,
it's so
I
anal,
don't want to do this.
It's pervert. It's for
You don't want to
perverts.
stir it at all, do you?
No. If I have diarrhea, if I got blood in my stool,
You go.
if I lose weight, I'll go, and then it'll be time to die. I'll die. But most people live. You know, somebody jumped off the Empire State Building. I nearly said Empire State Building, and the angel of death said, "How's it?" He said, "So far, so good." But that's what life is. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Am I going to? I've lived till 69 without fearing cancer or death or disease. I'm going to live till maybe 80, maybe 90. I'd rather live till 80 happily than live an extra 5 years by testing this, testing that. A lot of people live in such fear, you know.
And a lot of them, hospitals are a way of life. It's like my sister and husband are constantly at the hospital. Their life revolves around hospital.
I'd rather pay for the treatment that I don't receive.
Yeah.
And I glory be to your sister that we're all providing her lots of stuff that she can enjoy by being ill. Because I think illness is a way of life. I don't mean you slip on the banana peel once. You can, I can. But if you're constantly sleeping on banana peels, there's a certain pattern that you're enjoying.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, illness is a socially acceptable way of avoiding responsibility.
I had an aunt who was a lovely lady, absolutely stunningly intellectual person who loved all sorts of manner of food, but she thought the only way she was going to get anybody to pay any mind to her, constantly slipping in puddles on leaves. If there was one patch of ice in Montreal, she would find it and fall on it. And we would have to go, oh, I'm so sorry, Chocha.
Chacha means an aunt.
Aunt, yeah.
Chacha means an uncle in Hindi, and Chachi means a female aunt.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, see, they're very close. They're very close.
Chacha.
Yeah. But the Slavic and Indo-European, but that's a different conversation. We've only got 15 minutes, I think. Why
are you taking responsibility for a show that I'm running? But carry on.
But I'm warning you that you want to get into this.
No, please do. Tell us.
But this woman would just always find some means to be ill or hurt herself or things. So she would have 2 or 3 of her friends over. Had she lived long enough to have Facebook, she'd be the one person going on, I'm not so good today, I'm really not sure.
There are people who do that on Facebook. No, the people who said, I didn't sleep last night, so I send them saying, I'm very interested in sleep, this is what I do. I don't get an answer back because they're not interested in solving the problem. They enjoy it.
And the Hay, I was really amazed. I'm in a Hay house group, And I thought that was all about sort of thought leaders and authors and so on. And most of the time it's send me your prayers. And then it becomes this, and I'm thinking,
how sick can you be that you need my prayers?
yes, I'm just thinking, this doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking about prayers and you were talking about those fairies, in Detroit they did this experiment of alternate people being prayed for, but they didn't know, the computer told them. And the beauty of that is a Muslim didn't get a Muslim prayer person. And the patient didn't know they were being prayed for. There was no such experimental explanation. And the ones who were prayed for stayed half as long in the hospital, got half as many deaths, half as many side effects. And they got out of hospital twice as fast. Plus, in Chicago was it that the hospital that faced the greenery, patients got out of hospital faster. And the one that faced a skyscraper, they took much longer because they felt trapped. These are real experiments.
Yeah.
There was a Chinese lady when I was married to somebody else at one point.
You married to your wife, weren't you?
Well, yes, I was married to my
So
wife.
what do you mean by you're married to somebody else?
Yes, well.
How many wives have you had?
Two.
But you're not married now.
Yeah, no.
So why did you say married to somebody else?
Well,
I think you're getting into a marriage soon, but carry on.
You want to predict things, that's fine.
I'm projecting.
Yeah. It's a fact, who knows? You're making me think now.
Another fine mess you got me into.
Thank you, Stan. Yeah, from Washington. Yeah. So this woman was in hospital, and just wonderful, one of the Chinese aunties, and she had this whole crew of people that would come and visit her. The poor nurse, I mean, you're a doctor. She got between the legs and kind of reached the she's walking into this room. There's 25 Chinese women with little pots and soup. And you can't all be here. Please leave. I mean, the poor patient. And this was going on for days and days and days. And then, and of course, they're all very ardent Roman Catholics, and they had a prayer circle going. And one day, the head yenta comes over. Yeah, well, what's the yenta? It's sort of the botherer, the one who does things.
Okay.
It's a Yiddish term.
The instigator.
Yeah, the instigator. She sets people up, and you want a boyfriend or girl, she'll find you.
Right. Yeah.
She's the Mrs. Fixer.
Yeah. So the yenta comes over one day, and this poor woman who's been dying in hospital, and she says, please stop with the prayers. I keep slipping off. I'm almost at the light, and you keep pulling me back.
Exactly,
And then they stopped, and a day later she was gone.
So she wanted to go.
It's true, man. My father was quite ill, like from dementia and pneumonia in Ward 49. We put a little speaker with Hanuman Chalisa, Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar Jai Kapis, only because he's familiar with it. And he used to smile and things, And then we sent a lady to heal him. And she said, I sat with him. And he was in his mind telling me, I want to go. I don't know why you guys are keeping me here. So I think letting people go. We have our own fears. I want my daddy back. I won't let him go. Mommy, please don't go. And my mother died on the 30th of June, was it? Yeah. And 5 days later, I was in India and taking ashes. When I got back, one of the ladies here in Newcastle met me and said, oh, Dr. Anand, you need to talk. And I'm thinking, no, you need to talk. That's what I was thinking in my mind. I said, yes, tell me. Oh, you lost your mother, it must be terrible. I said, yeah, it is. And like, yeah, it is, like I'm buying a bag of crisps or something. We must meet over coffee and discuss this. And I've just avoided her since then. So she feed me all her negative. You want a listening post, go and pay somebody and spew your stuff out. I'm okay with my mother's death. I lived with her for 7 years. Very, very intimately. I knew her extremely well. I used to change her nappies in the beginning when I didn't have any staff. So she was like a friend to me. So because I've got over that, and things people will put on Facebook again, my mother is the greatest mother on earth. Share if yours is. What a bollocks is this?
Well, mine wasn't, so I'm whatever,
No, whether mine was or wasn't, what's it got to do with you?
It's that share this, and I'm just thinking, no.
Yes, that immediately turns me off.
Yes.
But this extra grief, pretended or not, holds people back.
Trapped in that grief.
Hopes, because they want to reassure the people who have passed on, want to reassure the people that are left, that they're okay. The only way they can do that is through something material. No, it's by re-entering the body and try, not going they're preventing a person from passing on properly and spiritually.
See,
And
even,
rising.
even in Hindus, there's an idea that the body is, soul is around for about a year. And then at the end of the year, when you offer food and all, saying, okay, it's fine, now you can go. So there's that feeling now. These are religious beliefs. You can't prove them scientifically or not. But they're common in many religions.
Well, you'd never be able to prove it scientifically.
No,
Because
maybe
you
science,
can't measure it.
Maybe
with-
exactly.
with
Maybe
earthly
science has
means.
There is a scientific test that you can run on at least one being. Okay, if you go back 2,000-3,000 years, and you
I wasn't
assume,
around then, but carry on.
and you assume, and this is an anthropological, cultural, historical thing that you do. You assume that 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, you did not have telephones, you did not have the mail, you did not have satellites. You had a certain limited amount of commerce, but
very slow.
Very incredibly slow, and it would take huge amounts of effort to go across a huge, gigantic mountain chain to go to the
reach
next
on the other
place.
side of the Andes or something.
And sometimes people lived on islands, and those island people would never meet anyone from, I don't know, Poland. So why is it that you can go through multiple civilizations, and I'm talking like 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, and each one of those civilizations has someone that if you take the physical description taken of the goddess in question, and I draw that for you, 5 different cultures will have a name. In Greece, she's Athena. But the same being arises in China, in Slavic culture, and in a couple of other places. Much older than any kind of means of communication that we have now. So you have to assume that there's some basis.
Commonality.
Well, it's more than commonality.
No, but
basis.
often, let's talk about yoga, which I know to some depth. I spent a lot of money. In fact, I became bankrupt because of it. I went to America, in California, where they're running a thing called HeartMath. HERT, heartmath.org. In fact, I got a phone connection with somebody in Turkey, your friend.
Right, Corinne.
Yes. She asked me about HeartMath.
Yes.
And I'm quite negative because they've stolen my money and so on. But the product is very good.
Yeah, I wondered what exactly you'd invested in.
Hunter Kane Limited came along. I saw HeartMath being shown to my medical students. I was so impressed because you're taking Eastern philosophy, Western technology. Best combo. I was just dumbstruck. I went and met the company. I took Anthea along, completely invested in the guy, got to know him, the Englishman, stayed in his company. And he was quite a good talker. In fact, my father brought clothes for his daughter who was about 12 years old and so on. So I got to know him very well. So he said, would you invest some money? And I thought, why invest some money, being the extremist that I am? I borrowed on my surgery £500,000 and put it in that company, which proceeded to cheat me and just swallowed the money completely. HeartMath. The company is called Hunter Kane Limited. Anyway, but the product is very good. This is the point. Hate the sin, not the sinner. The product is very good. So when I went to the States, I said, but this is yoga. And they were so vehemently objecting. But it is yoga. In the book I hold not in my hand now, written in India, they were talking about heart rate variability. When I went to give a lecture in New Delhi, Old Delhi rather, not New Delhi, Old Delhi, there was a Muslim guy, not a Hindu, who said, I remember his face, he was saying, this is what we call snake movement. You know, the boom, 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 boom. The rise and fall of the heart rate is called heart rate variability, and it depends on your breathing. So a Muslim fellow is quoting a Sanskrit text to Dr. Anand in India, and that really destroyed me in the sense that there's nothing new here except that technologically they are showing it. So all science can do is to show it to you. But the feeling, the theory, the idea, the discovery, the invention is not from science. Science is just able to express it in terms we can understand. That is what is biofeedback, isn't it? When I put my phone on sleep cycle, it's not actually measuring my eye movement, it's measuring my body movement. But when I see a picture of it moving, I say, I slept well last night, it's 75%. Maybe I should sleep some more. And so on. So HeartMath is really the expression of yoga, which even today they object to the word yoga. And I'm saying she protested death too much. Because like you say, how did the Indian sages 5,000 years ago know about Pluto? Maybe they ate a lot of carrots and could see very far.
But don't forget that so many thousands years, as I said before, all the ancient folklore was probably originally or a great deal of it.
It's history.
No, it was brought to them through the elemental beings because they could communicate with them. And so they said, oh, that flower and that root is good for this and that and the other.
But in ancient times, and I'm not talking really ancient, I'm talking about 1,500 years ago, there's a mountain in Ellora, Maharashtra, which has got one of the biggest temples. And because Aurangzeb didn't like temples, being a strong Muslim, he sent 1,000 people who worked there for a year, and they barely broke 3% of it. It's still alive and kicking. How did the makers make it is the point I'm making. How did the pyramids get made? You can give your rubbish scientific explanation. It doesn't add up, doesn't talk for me. There was something there. What about all this talk? Why are churches look like rockets, all these steeply things?
And I think they've found pyramids in the ocean as well.
Really?
Yeah.
And why are the pyramids and the Milky Way exactly the same? As the pyramids would have been 20,000 years ago, whenever they were made, the Milky Way is exactly like the River Nile. And the pyramids are the different stars on the Milky Way galaxy.
All right.
There's these resonances. It's not chance, I mean, even I've got a friend called Anthony Thawley. He's long retired, and I don't know where he is in London. He was the drug addiction expert. He used to actually read people's palms and get their date of birth, time of birth, and in the notes write the thing. But he couldn't tell the ministry. He's an Englishman, proper Christian and everything. But he understood astrology and palmistry. So people have to do these things subterraneanly, like hidden, like. But why?
Because it's not PC. Because it's not intellectual enough. Because it can't be proved scientifically sometimes. Because you can only, as I said before, if you were blindfolded and you were given a spade and you stood in front of a pond or a stream and you dug your spade into that, you wouldn't feel anything. You need something of this with a bit more resistance. So you need an instrument which is able to pick up, just as radio waves are. And the only thing that we've got is our spirit and the radiations that it produces. That is why we can pick up spiritual things, but you couldn't possibly measure them. You can measure the reaction it has on the brain, maybe because the brain would then produce some chemicals or other. But the actual thing itself, you can't measure because it's not measurable by anything material.
It's like weighing someone's body before and after they've died. So what is the weight of the soul?
Yeah.
I mean, it's in another dimension we are talking about.
Yeah. I mean, you can't measure
a thought.
As I've said before, you can't measure love with a ruler.
No.
Yeah.
On that wonderful theme, I think we should stop. You cannot measure love with a ruler.
Perfect.
So this is Simon Tucker and some recordings of his. Thank you. See you next week. Thank you. He's just brilliant, He plays the guitar like Ravi Shankar plays the sitar. He's that good at it. This is an Indian rag he's playing. What do you think of him?
It's very good. He's a white boy.
He's a what?
A white boy.
What's a yenta?
Yenta? What's a yenta?
I know the new word today.
Yenta is the woman who goes and finds a husband for a single girl. In theory, that's the basic, She's the marriage arranger, but she's also the gossip.
The same old radio sound.
So if you're not careful, you'll be hitched with the wrong person.
No,
not you.
They try and hit you properly, but but they still gossip about you.
So they are Mr. Fix-Its who haven't fixed their own lives often.
Yes.
Like Agni aunts are often very miserable people. I met the Mirror's Agni aunt. She came to the speakers group. Has she ever come back?
Sorry, who was that again?
I've forgotten her name now. I'll find out on my phone.
What does she look like?
Okay. I went to a house and she told me the story that one day she returned from a holiday and the builders had been in and she fell through a hole in the floor.
Right. Yeah.
Because she didn't have an iPhone or light or anything and she just fell. And that changed her life and now she can't advise people. Now she goes around asking for advice. I mean, you are walking, it's not a fractured spine. So what broke in you? Something very delicate and fragile.
Yeah.
But she's very keen to call people to a house to eat and this and that.
Oh, right.
That's like sucking you in just for the price of a meal. I bet you get people like that and you say, it's okay. I can afford my food. Interesting. Today was...
Where's your little bag of food and clothing? Where's your £5?
For the food and clothing.
I know you've got it.
But
and then he goes to me, so I don't see what your point is. And it's like, well, thank you very much. You've made my point for
is
me.
part of the protest about arguments.
Oh, protest alone is never good. Protest has to be part of change. Protest is merely shouting out loud, this is a problem.
Like a signboard.
And then you say, these are the solutions and let's do something about it. If you're always stuck in protest, then you get nothing done. If you're always stuck in meetings, you get nothing done. If you're sitting in council and you don't listen to these other parts, you also get nothing done. So
because you're unconnected with
exactly. So
disconnected.
all of these three things have to talk together.
Do you not think that some of these so-called professional protesters are really wanting attention? Just for themselves.
Well, they all are.
Not yes, I know, but not for the cause. For them.
Or for themselves.
For themselves,
Sure.
They want to be important because they feel small within. Therefore, they've got to protest and make a fuss so that they feel or seem to get noticed and feel more important than they actually are inside.
What do you think of that?
I completely agree. I knew there's a particular type of individual that you see at things, regardless of whether it's music venues or politics or local activism that's not specifically political. There's always 5 or 6 people who are always there front and center, and they're in every photograph. And you can
that says it all.
But you can actually tell how bad some of them are. There's one guy, this wonderful Armenian chap with a beautiful flowing mustache. I love photographing him.
Yes.
I'd have 2 MPs, a sitting councillor, and whoever was in charge of a particular issue that we were sort of talking about that day. The camera would come up, and suddenly this guy from out of nowhere,
just in front of the camera.
right in with everybody. I was like, how the hell did he do that?
Don't you think the camera changes people? Lady died because she was photographed so much as a young kid that the only bliss she got in life with that awful parental divorce and all that was being cute in front of the camera. I've seen lots of pictures of her looking sad, but nobody wants that. Everybody wants that cutie, beauty, pretty, princessy kind of school teachery kind of. What else can I say? I mean, I like her to some extent, but it is...
The camera's
it's all about the camera.
The camera's the mirror, don't you think?
Yes.
Is it? Or is it just captures those bits you want?
It's certainly a tool. I think if you want to get yourself into a particular place and whatnot, you use the tool that's most necessary.
But if I took out my camera right now and you have a particular self-image of yourself, you go, oh, I'm not ready. I don't like the clothes I'm wearing. I want to be smiling. Oh, I didn't shave.
Yeah. But that's because you want to...
Risaria?
And that's one, we were talking about this at Damsels because one of the women who actually helps promote people and get them improve their image, she is very, very, finds it very challenging to video herself. She's okay with a photo because she can set that up.
Now, I just realized the day before when I was working with Lalit Sood filming a black Nigerian Christian wedding. Okay. Now, the video captures motion and sound, but it doesn't focus on any one spot. Whereas Lalit Sood will take pictures at that speed and choose the picture where the fellow is not picking his nose, where his smile doesn't look like a snarl, where she hasn't got one eye closed and looking as if she's making a pass at her father-in-law. You know, the camera has to, but you can pick and choose. A video can't.
Yes.
Unless there are whole bits that are bad. So there's a big difference between the two techniques, don't you?
And that's why editing is such a skill.
But editing is the story, isn't it? I mean, I find the editing is so exciting because you can turn the same thing into, you can take slices from here, put it elsewhere. We were doing this Aman thing yesterday, and there was this guy who spoke very well, but at that time my camera was pointing to the audience. So I took bits of him, but the lip sync didn't work. But we made such a short piece.
Vibration of complaining. When you complain,
Keep talking.
No matter what, it really it doesn't
lowers the tone.
It lowers
By
your
vibration.
tone.
Yes,
it lowers
yes.
your vibration.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what or who you're protesting about.
Yes.
And if you learn to go into appreciation, either by the path of least resistance.
Yes.
And it's like I was showing people before I came on the show. We came on air. I got a card at Damsels in Success on Monday.
Damsels in Success, out of damsels not in distress.
In a different place, yes.
I mean, we sing, dance and eat cake. And it's like my housemate said, what's there not to like?
So what does your card read then?
And it's love where you are planted.
Love where you are planted. So God or whoever the guy is or lady is who sent you somewhere, wherever you are, enjoy.
Yes, and Glen's response.
My response was, that's okay, so long as you're not planted in shit.
And your response is?
In a shithole.
It helps you grow faster.
Yeah.
Better and
shit is
bigger.
manure.
And I agree, yeah.
You agree.
Because you're meant to be where you are. You've got to accept it and make the
So
best
this
of
is
it.
exactly the opposite of what Meatek is talking about. Because he's talking about protesting, and we are saying enjoy.
I'm not saying you shouldn't move out of the shithole, you know.
No.
It's you've got to appreciate where you are and why you're there. If you don't appreciate why you're there, then you'll never move out of it.
Is there a way of protesting through music and so on, which I followed a lot when South Africa was under apartheid? You know, they made a lot of music. Yes. What do you think? Because you have brought some music to us.
Well, what music does is the same thing that humor does, which is that, and by the way, you know, protest isn't what the protest that you sort of even going back to like when London was burning because of these people that were tearing down businesses. What happens in the Northeast? It's positive protest. It's people going out. No, we love immigrants. We love the poor. We love the mentally ill. We love everybody.
We love people.
We love people, and we don't want you to be nasty to us and to everybody else. We're saying to you, don't speak in our name.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying, and that we're putting out positive messages, and we're saying, if you like this sort of thing, if you want to be with us, we have these other activities that we can do that are far more sedentary, but equally important and equally powerful that we can do. And we put on things. We put on meetings. We put on shows. I'm putting on a show in January with two musicians, some poets, and possibly another 2 acts. I'm not quite sure which. And it's going to be sort of like a history of musical protest from the 60s, 70s in Newcastle to what it's like now. Has anything moved? Has anything changed? And what are the issues that the singers and the poets singing and speaking about now? And of course, when you come down for this, you can have a good time anyways, and the money goes to a good cause.
What you're saying is perfectly true, but do you not think people are getting on in age and still keep protesting, and they die protesting? I see some people who are always at Gray's Monument, rather. Always, I mean, whether it's about animal rights or human rights or animal. Do you not think people become
who are
professional protesters?
Oh, absolutely, they're professional. And you know what? I'm happy to have them there at these things. And I've talked to some of the professional protesters. I
meant that as a joke, actually.
Oh, but I'm quite serious. One of these guys shows up with a stack of newspapers. And basically his job is to start as many arguments as possible and sell his little newspapers. And I said, well, you've come down to this refugee thing, because he had at that particular point, and you're trying to talk about an issue which is not part of the thing that's on the table today. Today we're talking about getting food and clothing for refugees. So
there's a lot of lying or cheating. What do you think? Would you call it lying or creativity?
It's creativity.
Well, it's always coloured by the personality of the editor.
Yeah. Yes, of course. What does he or she want to say?
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think same with photographers. You can take a million pictures, but you choose the ones that you think are.
See, Saturday I was doing a gig. It was a fundraiser for Trussell Trust in Gateshead at the Central Bar, up on the 5th floor, and there was 5 or 6 acts. One of them was a punk rock band, and they're really fantastic. The problem with photographing a punk rock band is they move around a lot. And they do things that are really wonderful, and they do things with their faces and their hands and their instruments. And as a photographer, what you do is you go in there and you go...
Yeah.
And of course there's also composition. I mean, there is a certain amount of artistry, you know.
Even at that high speed.
And then you go down and you look at the 180 photos you took of these guys in 10 minutes or 20 minutes set, and you go for the shot where the lead singer is overarched like this. He's got the microphone and his hand is going like this. Another one of his bandmates is completely blurred, and you can feel the music. Or I can go for the boring shot, where everybody's still
and smiling, like a portrait,
and you can't tell what's going on. You can't see the passion in these musicians.
Well, it was the same when I was doing my when I was the student doing my illustrative course at university. And of course the tutors were always saying, you've got to exaggerate this, exaggerate that,
and caricaturize everything,
and distort this. And you see, that went against the grain with me.
And you being a woodworker, it would go against the grain.
Yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, but sometimes you've got to go against the grain, just maybe for an effect. But where it's in order to get noticed and get published, you've got to go to extremes. It's the same in television, radio, wherever. In order to get noticed, to put your head above the parapet of everybody else's work, you've got to, and it goes with the same with the soaps on television. Before, they were reasonably just okay as life really was. But now they've got to have murders and rapes and all sorts of
without just the ordinary boring stuff of going to the pub, having a pint and coming home. See, the other thing, Risaria, I feel about videos, since you've done a lot of video editing, people...
Can you hear the music?
Well, I can see the action.
I get people to do a lot of video editing for me.
Yes. No, but I think there's a big difference, The first step is photography. People used to be shy of their pictures taken. Now I think they got used to the idea. Because they can't help it. It's all on Facebook and everywhere. But when you do video, your voice comes out. And most British people are very scared of public speaking.
Yes.
And then they don't want the story to come out. I talk to so many of these so-called politicians, councillors. Soon as I switch on the camera, their tone changes.
Yeah.
Why are you so dishonest? So the video really gets to the heart of the matter. And most people are scared of it. So even great politicians, I'm not talking about the smallest, I'm talking about the most, I'll name her. This is Baroness Warsi. You can't go higher than her in guts. I mean, she's just a cabinet maker's daughter. She's Muslim, she's female, she dresses ordinary, she doesn't put on burqa and everything, but
I admire her for Tory.
Having said that, she won't let me video her. So we had this conference and she never said, she said, I would rather you didn't take. Even when she was here through Amar Mirza in Newcastle, she said, would you like to switch off your camera? I said, I wouldn't like to, but if you say I would, that's how I make friends with people, by being teasy. And then I said, why? I switched off. She said, because I swear. I said, well, if you swear, then be prepared to swear in public. And if you don't, then be prepared not to swear in public. So someone as gutsy as her, and I'm using her as a prime example of someone who's a real, not tyrant, but a Tyrannosaurus, she's not scared of nobody. She resigned from the cabinet. Because your phone may not be charged.
Our irregular regular.
Yes, that's a good one. And who have we here in the middle here? Introduce yourself, sir.
We have the mystery guest. I'm from Longbetton, and I sometimes talk politics and sometimes talk music.
And sometimes you shoot films.
Yeah.
You're a cameraman too.
No, I'm just.
And you're making a flyer and you just drop them in.
Yeah, and I have.
And you seem to have a CD in your hand.
I have a CD that you can't play because it's protest stuff. I'm not sure.
No, I don't mind playing anything. I mean, I don't join protest.
And your
number
name,
4, signature.
The name of our mystery guest.
Meatek.
Meatek.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember your name, so I saw those animals that go up on the hind side.
Yes.
Meerkats. So I thought Meatek, and I got it right.
Rest of my life.
But it's an unusual name. Is it Polish?
Meatek is Polish. Meerkat is just
Meerkat can be anywhere in the world.
Merely an invention of the media.
Merely an invention.
Yeah. That's track number 4, because the other stuff.
Is it too wide? The rest
well, I don't know. I mean, it's like I happen to like it.
Let it run. Who cares?
Number 4 is signature. It's inspired by the author's encounter at a job center, where the officious little lady in front of him said, "Your signature's too big."
Your ego is too small.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it about signatures? Did you all also have lots of signatures when you were teenagers? Like copying your parents and making fancy ones? Did you?
Yeah.
No, just evolved over the years, really.
In time I just write Anand as simply as I can. And that's very hard to copy. If you do one of those swish ones, it's perhaps
You mean like this?
Let me sign for you. God, that looks like
Walt
Disney signing.
I think mine came from when I was at boarding school. We used to have to do copperplate.
You see,
very exact.
I used to write like this with that round fat A, and now I do this. And it's easy to read and hard to copy.
Yeah.
So, mine's too easy to copy.
Okay, so let's have a listen to what you've proffered.
Back in the box.
Or get back in the box to people who are trying to get a job.
Yeah.
Sad.
Oh, it's hardly appropriate for here because we're out of the box.
Exactly. We're outside the box. Okay, then let the music run.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I find protest very difficult at my stage of life. I think it's just getting rid of your spleen, and so I don't bother going anymore. What do you think?
Well, protest is kind of useful, but if you're going to do more than protest, protesting is part one of getting a message out to people, letting everybody else know that you're really
that you exist
strong. We're not
disagree with something.
We're walking down Northumberland Street or Grey Street, and we're letting you know that we're angry about something, or that there's an issue that's really important that has to get out there that the regular media is not talking about. Once you've engaged people in that and yourself, you then go to meetings and you actually do things and you lobby individuals who can do something about it, whether it's companies or government or the media itself, to get them to change the way they do things.
So it's about changing people's opinions?
And educating them.
Educating them, okay. Would you not say it's almost kind of brainwashing then?
No.
Why not?
Because then you would say that teaching someone the alphabet's a brainwashing.
No. You show them the alphabets, then they do what they like with it. I asked this only because when I was at Leeds with Ali, one lady was talking about conversion, religious conversion. So another woman got up and said, what's the difference between letting people join the Labour or the Conservative Party? That's exactly the same thing, isn't it?
Well, it's a change of mind. It's
mindset.
It's you move from one set of beliefs to another, or a more comfortable set of beliefs.
So it's about comfort zone and not about learning.
No. I like to think that
Risaria, what do you make of it? I'm almost doing the devil's advocate on your behalf, because you're always about positivity.
Well,
and protest is about exactly the opposite.
Yeah. Yesterday I was reading an Abraham Hicks quote, which was saying, when you're in the vibration.
Nothing is running, that's why the thing is
What have you got on the air right now? Sounds like somebody doing...
Is there anything coming through your headphones?
I have nothing.
There's nothing through here.
Dub your life. Spice FM. 98.8 FM.
Should it be? There's only one.
Yes, there is now.
Into an experience. Picture and gift set for a range of our exclusive gifts from $5.99. And choose from a personalised photo gift box or hamper.
I had trouble with these ones on Sunday. We ended up swapping for that.
Tom Ford, Bonds number 9, Serge Luton's, Abercrombie and Finch, and much more, with free gifts with all fragrances. Make your scent personal at House of Scents.
Just bring your hand here and plug it here.
www.houseofscents.co.uk.
Have you lost weight, Doc? Have you lost weight? You look a bit sort of slimmer in the face.
I'm shaving. So I'm much into a juice diet,
Oh, right.
Every morning. Are you giving it to me?
We're trying to
entangle them.
WeBuyCarsForMore.com. WeBuyCarsForMore.com. That is what we do. You can come to us, or we will come to you. WeBuyCarsForMore.com.
Okay, we'll be on in a moment. So.
Instant valuation and payment. Go online at WeBuyCarsForMore.com or visit our valuation drive-through at the Newcastle.
Maybe try putting that in there.
Spare your money there and then, and even arrange a free lift home. Ask about our price
You?
promise.
No.
Make sure it's connected to the chair.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You see, some of them work one side, and the very kind commentators and people come here, just change what suits them. Then people like us who have more than one person.
See, I get enough on here, and here I get sound, but that's
Yeah, it's enough.
Yeah, so
Just be
Spice
careful,
that.
because Doc's got it connected up to the chair. If he doesn't like what you're saying, he'll...
So how many people have been dying from that mad flu?
No, it's never a proper death, because you're true, you recover and then you die again and again.
Yeah, a friend of mine told me he might die in about 80 years, but he's like feeling more than death, more than
No, I haven't got the flu, it's just the catarrh. I mean, I can get over a cold in a couple of days or so, but it's the catarrh I can't get rid of. Which reminds me, I have to get some tissue.
This is a very, very special limited offer and subject to availability. Call now on 0191 30633 or log on.
Actually, he could play track number 4, Signature. I think.
Very good afternoon. It's the Outside the Box show, and we have, of course, Risaria. Hi, Risaria.
Hi, Doc.
Hi. Just put your mic up a bit. Yes. And we have Glen.
Hello again.
Hi, all the way from Billingham.
And fully recovered, I hope.
Well, apart from the Qatar, you know, ding, ding, ding.
I thought you were from Billingham, not from Qatar. And where's the man with the guitar?
The mystery guest.
Oh, the mystery guest, we seek you, but we know you're not listening.